Yeah.
Wait, what movie question did you have?
All right. So it's a movie, I'm pretty sure, with Kevin Spacey, and I want to say Haley Joel Osment or some kid, maybe the guy who played Anakin Skywalker, and it's about paying it forward.
It's called Pay It Forward.
It is called Pay It Forward? You're fucking kidding me. Okay. Well, there you go. Okay.
I thought you were trolling for a second.
No, I swear to God. I was not. I thought that would be too on the nose.
That's how that phrase became trendy for a minute. It's because of the movie.
But I knew it was because of the movie, but I forgot that it was the movie title.
I like the theory that it's American Beauty, and when he gave all that goodness to that prostitute, it's because he used to be a prostitute and someone got him out of trouble.
When you're talking about that goodness, you talking about like goodness or
the good? Like he took her out of poverty or what? I haven't seen it. I just assumed she was in a bad situation. She's a prostitute, but
I don't think
prostitute in American Beauty.
Yeah, I don't think it was a prostitute. It was Laura Birch in American Beauty, who, by the way,
just a teenage girl. That's it.
Am I crazy? Is there not a movie where Kevin Spacey hires a prostitute and then like he's like, I'm actually a good person. I'm going to get you out of this horrible situation. Am I?
Are you thinking of Pretty Woman?
Actually,
Pretty Woman. There we go. That's
no, he wasn't in that one though. That was Richard Gere.
Look, I don't know who's.
You want to see a really good movie where Kevin Spacey is an upstanding citizen? Have you ever heard of Seven? Did you ever watch Seven?
I have.
Look, unlike my co-hosts, I'm not a big fan of Kevin Spacey nowadays.
Yeah. Well, that's not true.
Well, it's funny. I actually started liking him more knowing
I was about to
he's
say
gay.
That's
he's
true.
gay. Oh, he did say that, didn't he? He
made that announcement
as part of that damage
control. He said, "I hear that I've molested a lot of children. I would just like everyone to know that I'm gay." That was pretty much his.
Nobody clipped
his
that
statement,
but also
they were boys.
Okay,
the Catholic Church does it. I can do it too. That's what he said.
Yeah, that was his opening statement.
I think I saw
it didn't seem to work for him. People still canceled him.
He was on a commercial or something that's gone like viral in the past month, like as a comedian's, like a commercial for a comedy special, I think on Netflix. You guys know what
it was Tim Dillon.
Tim Dillon.
Yeah.
Is he funny?
Yeah, I mean, he's really good at ranting. His politics are a bit like bad, I think, but he's pretty funny. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Did he make a joke about Kevin Spacey, or was he just like, "Hey, look, it's Kevin Spacey. He's promoting me."
I think he was like his Frank Underwood House of Cards character, like satirizing it.
Yeah,
like
they did an ad
character
for the comedy special using Kevin Spacey in character.
Well, do you guys remember when he did the character? It was like a Christmas thing, and he just like threatened like the people that accused him of misconduct, like in his Frank Underwood character, who is notorious for murdering witnesses.
I remember him doing this like cringe thing, but I don't recall it was a threat towards his accusers. That would maximize the cringe, definitely.
I think that's what he did, but maybe I'm misremembering.
So, folks, for those of you wondering, Pisco is supposed to be showing up, but chronically late, has no respect for the time, and oh, there he is. Pisco's joined.
Typical Liv, showing up late to things.
Hear me?
Yeah,
barely.
We can.
I feel like Pisco looks different every week.
He is.
It's like a brand new look every week.
Well, and like a brand new background. Like, don't you have like this nice like Japanese like folding door behind you usually?
Yeah, so usually he's in a Best Western streaming from like a hotel, and now like he's in a broom closet somewhere. But yeah,
somewhere nondescript.
Are you in a undisclosed Faraday cage in Tim Pool's compound right now?
I am running from the government, and Tim Pool did say that he would provide certain services, not those kinds of services. All right, settle down.
Did you get a sushi with the boys at the skate park?
Sushi with no. I hung out with the people who came for me. It was also in Maryland. Well, not in West Virginia.
Okay.
The first time I went there, I had to go pretty fast back to New York City. But the second time, I was going to hang out with the boys, the people who came out, some of the libs, like the 3 or 4 people who came out for me.
Yeah, those brave libs. That was
I know.
That was quite the audience. I felt really bad
What did
for
you
you.
think about that?
I thought my favorite moment was when you like had him backed in the corner, like made him answer this question. You could just see him like his like brain, like, oh, how do I get out of this one? And he just started being like, well, I asked you a question, or this is what you do. This is what Pisco does. Pisco just, he drills down on this very specific empirical fact and then makes me answer the question, and then I can't do it. And
Pisco does this bad faith debate tactic where he asks questions and expects answers. But again, what we're seeing is the power of the yes or no. Okay. What you don't understand is that has been the key to Pisco's success, both personally and professionally. Okay, I'm convinced he got his
You
current
want to go on a
girlfriend.
date with me? Yes or no?
No, yeah, it's exactly like, do you want to be official? Yes or no? And then he'll do the thing where he's like, he looks away because that's what he does. He's like, yes or no.
Hell yeah.
That's what
Hey,
he does.
what,
And he got a
did they
yes.
call you Pisco to be mean to you, or is it because they can't pronounce the
I
I?
don't care. Yeah, I think they don't know the heritage of
Pisco-
that word. They don't know anything.
Would you like to address the controversy surrounding your Discord server on this show now that we are
Yeah, I do actually.
in front of a bigger
Great.
audience?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So
No.
what happened was, and Hutch, please stay with me, Hutch. I received notice late after my debate with these two people, the misfit asshole and Sean the something, and apparently there were Nazis that were harboring in my Discord. Someone told me this, and then they started spamming me on Twitter saying, "You're harboring Nazis. You're harboring Nazis. You're harboring Nazis." And it was like every single one of my replies just adding. He was adding like all these drama accounts saying, "Wow, isn't it weird that Pisco harbors Nazis on his Discord?" And it was just like a whole campaign.
That is weird.
What the fuck is going on? And so I checked with my mods, and don't worry, we've done an investigation. There are no Nazis in the server. Everything is as good, and apparently it was just a goof. Then there's no actual Nazis.
Sounds like the
One of those
opposite of the
Nazi
opening
dudes,
of
huh?
Inglorious Bastards. Like the
Yeah.
lid comes into your house. It's like you're sheltering Nazis under your floorboards. Are you not, Mr. Pisco?
Yeah, no, it wasn't anything like that at all. I'm also starting Andor,
Hell yeah,
And
let's
bro,
go.
and it's pretty good.
The
Hell
best
yeah.
live action Star Wars period. When you say you're starting it, you mean season 2?
Season
or...
1.
Wow.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I thought
Binge
about
it-
Hutch
binge
on
it
the
in,
airplane.
Binge it in like 3 episode arcs
Mhm,
because like
mhm.
each season
Okay.
is 12 episodes and each season has like 4 arcs. There's like
Mhm.
3 episode arcs for each one. But yeah, it's
And it
great.
just
I know.
finished yesterday, so you perfect time. You
It
picked
is.
the binge.
It
was
is.
great.
The series finale was yesterday. Who here, by show of hands, including those in the comments section, raise your hands, even though we won't see it. Who here has concluded Andor? All right. Wow.
Is
Hutch?
it so? It's an anthology. It's like every 3 episodes is a whole new.
No. It
There's
tells
a
a
through
cohesive
line.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
There's a through line. It's it's about revolution. Just it's about it's just a side of Star Wars that we never get to see. It's like the least Star Wars thing in the
a-
entire Star
in a
Wars
good
But
way,
canon.
also the most Star Wars thing. It is simultaneously the least and the most.
I would say
Star
I'd
Wars.
agree with Hutch, Josiah, because it's the least Star Wars because it's good. Most Star Wars is bad, and I'm a Star Wars fan. I gotta say, like they made 2.5 good movies, and then it's just been decades of dog shit, and then they made Andor. So
I totally agree. But what's your second? So obviously you're referring to Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. But what is the other?
can I
what are
say
the
I
other
like that
one
one
we
the
have?
best of the sequels, despite hating all three.
Oh, my man!
Unironically,
My man!
Like it's like saying the worst shitty movie, or
No,
the best
I'm
shitty
with
movie,
you.
the least worst. But like, I was so checked out after watching 7 and 8. Then I watched 9. I was like, oh, whatever. Like, oh, this is
Bro.
stupid. I'm enjoying it. Whatever. It's bad.
My
but, like, it's the
expectations
least
are
bad.
in the gutter. You
You
know,
know,
Exactly.
I fucking love. Listen, I think we should make this a 5-man show now. I think we should have him on permanent rotation for
Let's
no other reason.
go.
Let me. Speaking
Should we
of-
do intros real quick?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
soy.
You're
who
a
is this
terrible
guy?
host, Josiah.
Wait, hey, we are all co-hosts here. Okay, I just
True,
simply
true,
pay
true.
for the restream account. That's it. So go ahead, Mr. SoyPill. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm the SoyPill. I like Star Wars Episode 9. No, I make video essays on politics. I've been streaming off and on since about December. I do debates. I do all sorts of stuff, but mostly video essays where I disparage the right wing, but also try to build bridges between the left and right wing by being slightly understanding and not a centrist. That's my shtick.
So welcome. 2 things, and while we're playing this first clip, since we talked about Star Wars and we're talking about politics, this is very relevant because this clip happened yesterday. It's a CNN clip that is not AI generated. It's fucking real. But before we get to that, I also want you to find the clip. I'm sure there's a clip out there of your interaction with Rob Noor, because maybe the audience hasn't seen it and they need to see
Yeah.
this exchange.
You're wrong for
because
that, soy pill.
I'm wrong for that. Hold on,
No,
I've got it on lock.
You-
I'll send it to you on Discord.
Send it through to Discord. But first, I want to show you all this clip. It took me off guard that this is a real thing. spoken by real people that you will recognize. This is on CNN. Scott Jennings, the smuggest MAGA prick in all of television, not just CNN, all of it. This is what he had to say on CNN last night.
I think it's time that we took a different look and a new look at the reign of Emperor Palpatine. I think maybe, I mean, you did a podcast on this. I think he's getting a bad rap. And look what he did. He took on an entrenched deep state at the Jedi Council. He tried to bring order to the, he wanted free and fair and reciprocal trade around the galaxy.
Blew up Alderaan.
Protected law and order. Well, I think some could argue that it was warranted given their rebellious activities. I mean, he defended the Empire against unelected hippies and violent protesters. I'm just saying, it's been a while. We may need to take a look at this again and say, was he right? And maybe it's time to take a different look at his leader.
Was Palpatine right about everything?
That's a real fucking clip, y'all. That's a real clip.
Palpatine is based on like Hitler, right?
And Richard Nixon.
Wait. This might not pass. This is my, whenever I see something and I'm like, that's ridiculous. But what's my smell test? Is this like the CNN version of Red Eye on Fox, where it's like the joke panel where they just kind of riffing? No. Or is this real news?
The regular political contributor. There's no Red Eye equivalent on CNN.
You know, I think I want to go out on a limb and say that he was just joking. 'Cause there is a Empire did nothing wrong part of the Star Wars community, which does defend the actions of Palpatine and the Empire, of course, because they did bring order to the galaxy. I'm not sympathetic to that point of view, just to be clear. I'm just trying to steelman their side.
And have you guys read the EU?
I'm sorry, just real quick here, before you bring in the EU. We have to, here's the thing. Is Scott Jennings joking? Of course, but that clip is real. And number two, the problem is that joke is less funny when you consider the shit he says and goes viral for every day defending a real world fascist. So it's like
deep satire, Josiah.
Right. So it's like it would be funnier if it came from like a liberal or a progressive taking the pro Palpatine posture. But it's like, bro, it's actually not that much of a stretch.
You guys are ruining comedy. You're ruining comedy.
And they legalize comedy now. Yeah.
Well, that's what didn't the president post like the AI photo with the red lightsaber, like, so he's like,
oh yeah,
kind of LARPing as a Palpatine figure. So
Trump has some banger tweets. I'm fair enough to admit. I think Panakin is a banger tweet, and I think that Star Wars AI thing, I think it's pretty good.
Calling his friend fat, that was great.
Bro, the fat jab shot, or what would he say?
He said, and he's very fat. The Ozempic shot, it's not working very well, clearly.
That's actually really, who's that about?
We don't
know. I know a businessman who is blonde and fat, and he's been fat for a long time. And he took it and it just didn't work. So people are saying he's talking about, he's telling on himself. Okay. Because he is a fat businessman.
So maybe we mentioned this opaque reference. I don't know. Is this can I maximize this screen? Oh, Jesus.
Aren't YouTube shorts great? Isn't it cool how it just crops off everything and it doesn't let you control where you are in the video or have a volume slider?
Yeah. It's YouTube, but better. Love it. Okay. So this is the SoyPill in action, folks. So I don't think I had known who you were prior to this, but I saw this and laughed my ass off. Pisco, were you on this panel or did you?
Oh wait, no, I clipped this. This was my reporting.
No, this is my clip, Pisco. I sent this to you.
No. I
don't
reported
steal.
On this. No, it was your clip, but I reported this was my news.
Okay.
Clip this up, but I have a whole thing about it.
All right, here we go.
SoyPill is the only reason that I'm willing to engage in this debate with good faith until I hear more from Staxi, which is most of the people on the left that want to talk about this had no problem with the corruption that we saw over and over again from Democrats. I wish that I could be talking to people that knew what they were talking about. Unfortunately, I'm stuck with you two morons. So,
well, real quick, I wanted to jump in. Rob, you did call me a fucking moron. I just want to point out the screenshot that I provided you is completely fabricated. If you look at it, views are 7, the likes are 23. I just edited it so you would answer my question. So if you're only here for good faith, I want you to let you know I totally deceived you. Yeah.
So then I'm out. I'm out of this panel then. Fuck you. I'm serious. Either you're gone or I'm gone. Like, it's up to you. I'm serious. So I'm not dealing with this panel other than to insult this fucking idiot the whole time. So it's either me or him, or you just let me completely eschew the topic and insult this asshole. I'm not listening to a fucking word that this guy says. I am not listening to a fucking word this guy says, period. He's muted on my end. I can't hear him. Rick, please. I know you're just a DGG suck. You have no talent. Progressive Victory Pack.
Jesus Christ, man.
You have no talent. You have no talent other than getting shit pushed by Progressive Victory.
Because you're an un-American.
Can't actually have this show that wants to talk over people because you can't allow people that are actually able to make these points have a voice. You can't. So, well, SoyPill's the only reason that I'm.
So, so for the full context of that, so out of nowhere, so I had a debate set up with Rob, and randomly he posted a tweet, and I saw this tweet because I started following him after this debate was set up, and he said, you know, let's talk about, this was when Trump said like something about he who serves his country cannot break a law, or whatever the Napoleon quote is. I was like, this is disturbing. This is dictatorial. Rob, do you think this is bad? And he says, I will not engage with a single left-leaning person until they show me their track record of having disavowed Biden's corruption during the last administration. And I'm like, Rob, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I didn't use Twitter during that time. Like, I can't show you that I did. Even if I did have that opinion, like, I don't have the receipts. And he's like, then I refuse to engage. And I'm like, well, you know what? What if I just press F12 and just type in my opinion and then just post that? And then I was like, well, he's just going to say, like, you're such a bad faith motherfucker. I was like, oh, I'm just trolling him. But he just immediately accepted it as, like, real, even though you can search on Twitter and you'd see that I've never tweeted that. And I was like, okay, shit. Like, I guess that worked. And he answered my question. I was like, cool, I got you to answer the question. Now, this had nothing to do with the debate. But apparently, the only reason he was willing to engage in that debate was because he thought I was extra good faith for calling out Joe Biden. And since then has, like, almost completely disavowed debating because he can't find anyone who he considers good faith.
He still fucks with Pisco though. He and Pisco, they're like Joker and the Batman. They
I don't know.
do it forever. And I don't know who's who.
His whole I don't know either. His whole shtick is like, I don't know anything to these motherfuckers who refuse to call out blah 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 some dumb narrative that he has presented that's been debunked by me 1,000 times. But it's weird because he does say I don't have to give these people the time of day, which I guess is technically true. But then he's like, but I will if I want to. And so I don't even know what he's saying other than he's just like crying that people don't agree with him. It seems like he's just like an end run to be like, if you don't agree with me, you're automatically bad faith. Frankly, I think that it's a bit of a cop out.
His patented move, his Hadouken, is the whataboutism. Like, a lot of people do straw man, especially in politics, but it's all he has. He never defends or stands by anything on the merits. Like, he always deflects to like, what about Joe Biden? What about Joe Biden?
FISA warrants. What about the FISA warrants?
FISA warrants. Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's created like a closed loop ecosystem of argumentation, right? Where, essentially, if you his number one issue, and Rob has said this before, and I'm not being bad faith when I say this, he has said that his number one issue that he votes on is corruption in the FBI. And he's also said that if you disagree,
Trump.
Well, yeah, right. But he said if you disagree with his characterization of corruption in the FBI and the CIA, that disagreeing with him on that is like, it's like saying 2 + 2 = 5. It's disagreeing with such a brute fact that you must be bad faith.
It really is a brute contingency.
Right, like that's the closed, that's the closed loop argument Rob Noor ecosystem, which is why it's a little bit. I mean, it's weird because he says that you're bad faith, but it's like, but that almost seems like
he engages with me. And listen, SoyPill, you lied. You did lie. You F12, you sneaky bad
Weasley little liar.
I'm a Weasley little liar.
You liar. But I see someone in the chat being like, he's bad faith, yet you engage. Bro, yesterday I had a debate with Alex Stein. The reason, and the thing is, I'm never going to out funny Alex Stein. I'm never going to be funnier than Alex Stein.
He's not that funny. Come on, Pisco. Don't be so hard on
yourself. He's pretty funny.
He's kind of a
I think he's funny.
What was the shtick? He catcalled AOC, and it was like, it wasn't funny.
Was
it was
bad.
Just weird,
Okay, listen. I think that he does bad things. I think he has bad opinions. I think he has some hateful opinions, and he's done some bad shit. But
look,
people who do that are funny.
Credit.
Trump is funny. Can we all agree Trump is funny?
Absolutely, yes. But I don't think Alex Stein is very funny.
Hutch, look at Hutch.
Is Hutch
not?
Hutch?
I think Trump is funny sometimes, like most people are. But like when people,
he's funny.
No, and I think most of the time I laugh at Trump. It's like when he does something unintentionally fucking dumb. Like when you ask, okay, is somebody funny? I'm thinking of a comedian who is purposefully trying to make people laugh. Trump's done that before and has made me laugh. But it's like more often than not, it's usually like him fucking up spectacularly or shooting himself in the foot. Like even when he made me laugh about the fat shot thing, like was he
Like that was on purpose. That's
Was it, or was it just in the
Yeah.
moment? He's like, "What the fuck is the name of that?" He got the fast shot, the fat drug shot. Like, I don't think that was a rehearsed bit. Nor do I.
He's great at improv. He used to do TV. He did reality TV. I think that there's a.
He made
a
it sound like he was
healthy-
on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like he's fucking
Well,
Ryan
yeah,
Stiles,
sure.
you know? Like you missed me with that shit.
The point is the insult comedy, the crowd reaction. I think he definitely has something there that is entertaining on purpose. I think a good chunk of it is totally on accident too. Like when he goes on rants about windmills.
Let me
and
ask
does
you
the sound
this.
effects,
Let me give you an iconic Trump quote, and you tell me if he's like calling Jeb Bush low energy. Like, is that really witty? I call him low energy Jeb.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's
Low
not
energy,
hilarious inherently, but the way that he delivers it is really funny.
He's funny if you regress back to being like actually like 6 or 7 years old. Then it's like real knee slappers.
Yeah, because
like anything beyond that is just like, and he brings everybody else down with him. So now everybody else emulates his insults.
Like horrible Hutch. He doesn't have a sense of humor. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Like,
he's a terrible
what's
host.
witty about low energy? That's why I don't understand. It's like I remember.
Nothing. It's just pee pee caca poo poo face.
That's funny. That's funny, Hutch.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can
Funny,
merge
poop-
these
poop
two
is
things.
funny.
Exactly. We can merge these two things. I think Josiah's right, and it's almost more like you're laughing at him than with him. It's not like he's making conscious jokes a lot of times. For instance, when he tweeted, he said like, it was like, shout out to all the losers and the haters on this September the 11th or something. Right? It's like, that is insane to tweet.
Drink Diet Coke. That's a great one.
He busts that out for multiple holidays. He'll do it on fucking Easter, Memorial Day.
It
He
kills
doesn't care.
every
It's
single time he
fucking
does
really
it.
funny.
It's
Yeah, exactly.
really good every time.
Like there's something like I was hold on. I was gonna say I was listening to a podcast where they have a young daughter who's like 4 years old or something like that, and she's discovered that she can say like, "Hey, mom and dad, I have this really funny joke. Knock knock," and then they're like, "Okay, like who's there?" And she goes, "Fuck," and she just like screams "fuck" as like a 4-year-old, right? And look, as a parent, you know, obviously you can't laugh at that because you don't want to encourage your kid, but it's really funny. She knows that it's funny that a 4-year-old is doing that. She has that self-awareness. And I think Trump is similar. Like he knows how to get laughs and how to entertain people, right? But it's not going to appeal to everyone. But it is funny.
They've made a new party based on stupid and incompetent people. It's called the Panicking Party. It's gold, man. Who could come up with this shit? And yeah, so I do think him going after Bush was funny.
Yeah, real quick before I'm reading chat. Pisco, can you dim your lights a bit more? Like
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Let me just.
God damn! Why are you in the dark? What's the fuck? There you go. Like, there's no difference. It's like, what's with the mood lighting on this shit?
Yeah,
the only thing low energy is
I'm
the
on
bulb.
the lamb. I'm on the lamb. I told you guys this. I'm being hunted by the government, and it's just not.
You just need a voice distorter, and you look like a fucking witness on Unsolved Mysteries.
It's like store
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny.
SoyPill, what's your max bench?
My max bench? I don't know. I don't do max. I aesthetically lift.
He doesn't
It's
lift.
all for
What are you talking about?
It's all First of all, I wake up like this. How dare you? But no. I do 5 reps of 275 on incline as like my max. But I don't do like the 1 rep max. You know. So
first of all, that's insane. Okay, that's a really high 5 rep max. I feel like on incline. Goodness, SoyPill. That's ridiculous.
But like, here's
what
the
is
thing.
your regiment?
I can't say exactly what it is now because I'm putting it into the workout vid, which is coming in June. When I finish my cut,
I was saying the
aesthetic,
just the steroids. Like what are all the drugs
what
that
are the
you're on?
chemicals you take? Yeah.
I just
right.
do you know that like this is weird, but you know how in like Dune they have those suits that like recycle their water?
Yeah.
Do you know how much protein is in ejaculate?
I don't.
Yeah, but why do you need
That's
the
all.
suit?
I'm not going to say I do anything with that. I'm just letting you know.
Why do you need the suit? Oh, your own ejaculate. I didn't know where you were going with that. I was like, I didn't know if you were getting a source elsewhere.
The cum must flow, I think, is what the line from the movie is.
We've lost subscribers as a result of this. That's why Hutch is desperate to change the subject.
Semen is a complex substance created by the male reproductive organs. The fluid is made mostly of water, plasma, and mucus.
I'm cringing.
It also contains 5 to.
Are you fact checking me saying I eat cum to get big?
It also contains 5 to 25.
Come on. Okay.
All right, whatever.
Come on. All right. So
So wait, hold on. You said you've been doing content stuff since December. Is that what you just said?
I've been streaming since I've had my channel since the pandemic, like right when it started. That was the perfect time to lock myself in the room and use a mic. But I randomly blew up in November. My friend convinced me to go to a Blair White event and a Trump rally, and that just happened to algorithm me into the limelight. But before that, I had like 500 subscribers after 5 years. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey man, that's an awesome clip right there. Good for you. I mean, right now, in all seriousness, I think you at 20 at this point? Like you're
20. I'm at 88,000 right now.
Wait, who's at 20? P-score, are you at 20? Where are you?
I'm at 20.
I'm sorry. I'm at a round up 20. Okay, I'm at like 17 or 18 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand, because Zaya, I think you have the biggest. Maybe Hutch, one of you two is the biggest.
Hutch has the
Why
biggest
doesn't it
YouTube
bleed
channel
into
in terms of
you
subscribers
two?
by far?
The Econoboy and the Pisco. Where's the trickle down subscriber count? You go on this big thing. Like, am I going to get even a boost from this? What's going on?
No,
I talk about boring things most of the time. You know,
Josiah's audience is 60-year-old women who have abandoned MSNBC. And because
and they share my love of the Golden Girls, and they share my love of the Golden Girls.
Oh, you guys got to
say
do
that
the
like you're joking.
theme song.
You say
I'm
that like
not
you're joking, but I feel like I've had interactions with old divorcee women from Josiah's tweets.
Wait,
there's
what kind
nothing
of
wrong with that.
interactions?
So you're
Whereas
saying
my audience is much more, I would say, much more heavily younger, or I don't know, 28 something, 30-year-old men. So it's not a great audience.
Pisco, you need
My
to
audience, and obviously he's
week,
cornered the
Pisco.
market on the Nazis, right? So he has by far the greatest representation of Nazis in his audience. Fuck you,
Pisco. Might I recommend every Monday an event called MILF Monday, where you exclusively have MILFs on.
Can we stop degraded woman?
Jesus That's not a degradation. Wait, MILF says I love fucking, not I hate women. All right. Do you know what the acronym stands for?
I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's why you don't have the Josiah and the Hutch numbers, because you don't know.
because Hutch and I have MILF Mondays.
Guys, we're not funny. We need to watch the Qatari airplane thing, and we need to give commentary on it.
So let's talk about this for a minute. So this is, I was almost going to say, the biggest act of corruption of the Trump administration, but that's not true, because it's still the meme coin, in my opinion. Maybe you all disagree, but to recap,
very hard to say.
I'm sorry.
Very hard to say which is the biggest. There's a whole lot of
the meme coin for sure, right?
Yeah, sure.
Got to be the meme
I think
coin.
so. Yeah, I think you're right, Hutch.
Well, I guess we can talk about it because the exact price of the so-called free gift is actually subject to debate. So let's start with this, okay? And it's going to lead into the clip. So
I just love you say the free gift.
Yeah,
I know you're using Trump's term.
Yeah, the free gift, right? So Trump is going to be gifted a Qatari luxury jet from the Qatari royal family that's valued at approximately $400 million. Now, the emoluments clause of the Constitution, which we have a lawyer here who can weigh in on this at the end, but he says the Constitution says, hey, if you're going to get a gift from a foreign state, it has to be approved by Congress. Trump, who controls Congress, is like, nah, fuck that. I'm just going to take the gift and use it for 2 years as Air Force One. Then I'm going to take it with me when I leave office, and it's going to go to my library. Okay, $400 for this plane. That's the value of it. Say what?
$400.
400 million.
Did I say 400? Oh, 400 million. $400 million.
I did the same thing when I tweeted at JD Vance. Don't worry, I did the same thing.
But
it was embarrassing.
There's also
the Qataris have gifted him a single-engine Cessna. It's pretty.
I don't even think that would be 400, but the value is actually more than that, right? As this CNN clip lays out, and we get to the other side, we'll unpack this corrupt scandal.
Let's look at the capabilities of this unique plane, maybe the most unique aircraft in this country. Look, it has to have highly secure communication systems that nobody can hack into, nobody can read. It needs to have defensive systems to avoid missiles that might be fired at it or any other kind of weapons. The ability to shield against electromagnetic pulse. What that means is every wire in this plane has to be shielded in such a way that it can't be taken out from without. And the capability to refuel in flight. Remember, George W. Bush operated from this plane on...
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen that South Park episode where the Marklars have to go to Planet Marklar and they're all like funding for like the best spacecraft? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Where they're like,
no.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you've seen that episode, you know that's what.
No,
like.
I appreciate you interrupting.
I don't watch cartoons for babies, Pisco.
I want to go back to evil Dennis Prager.
Yeah, that's great, Pisco. Thank you for that.
9/11, because that's what you do to make sure you have a safe command center in the sky. Doing all of that on a plane of any sort, but particularly one that's been gifted to you from another country, where in security analysts say you basically have to take the whole thing apart and put it back together to make sure there are no bugs, no built-in failures that have been put in there, could take up to 2 years. Now remember, there are new Air Force Ones on the way that Donald Trump negotiated. They are on the way. Will they be done in time for him to use? We don't know, but presidents don't do it for themselves. They do it for the next president, for the country. Up to 2 years to do that. And in that time, here's the really key part to bear in mind. Making all of those changes to this free gift is estimated to cost maybe 3 times as much as the value of the free gift.
So
no.
Jesus.
costs an additional $1.2 billion. What the fuck?
It's also worth mentioning that the attorney general who advised him that this was legal is literally a former Qatari lobbyist, and so is Kash Patel.
Registered, a foreign agent that was registered
Exactly.
under FARA.
Were there any FARA violations? Pisco?
Yeah,
from
no.
that?
No, she was. Don't worry, guys. No FARA violations for Pam Bondi. She was registered. She actually was registered as a Qatari agent.
You guys are
Pretty wild
speaking
stuff,
a big
huh?
game when your favorite justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, took Beyonce tickets that one time, and I didn't hear any of you saying
yeah.
anything about that.
Dude, like just put this into perspective, right? So we have
Just move
right
right
now.
past it. See, guys?
Okay, I mean, the Ketanji Brown Jackson thing was obviously the most corrupt thing in the history of the United States, just like the Hunter Biden
That's
stuff.
right.
But we're
Does
on a
Beyonce
whole
have a
nother-
Supreme Court case?
She might.
If she
That's all.
would,
She might.
if she would, do you think that she should recuse herself, Justice Jackson?
Absolutely. Yeah, she's clearly a Beyonce fan.
Yeah, I do too.
You know who I think
All right, anyway.
accuse themselves on the court if Beyonce goes before them? All the single ladies.
Fuck out of here.
We're never gonna get through this story.
We're really not. All right, Pisco, for real. Go ahead.
I think the worst thing about this is the blatant hypocrisy of like I have to say it, of a lot of the right-wing channels who had no problem with Trump coin whatsoever, had no problem with Trump taking all sorts of foreign money when it related to other countries that will go unmentioned. And the general corruption of the crypto schemes, of all the other, business dealings that they had. But when it's Qatar, right? All of a sudden, when it's Qatar, they wake up and like, oh, this is corrupt. I actually do think that the Trump meme coin, to Hutch's and Josiah's point, is worse than this. But this it is more reachable for the regular person. They know that there's something corrupt here because they can smell it. A luxury plane, a luxury jumbo jet that has to be outfitted for $800 million. That's more tangible than I think the ongoing forever corruption of the Trump meme coin.
Bro, fuck, I don't think we should lowball it. I mean, this guy, for whatever reason, said $800 million, but if the consensus is that it's probably about $400 million, they say up to 3 times the value. Now, I'm not a math guy, that's why we have a Conaboy here, but I'm pretty sure it's $1.2 billion that could come from taxpayer funds to retrofit this fucking thing for 2 years before he's like, and I'll take this and I'm going to take it to my library that he'll never visit.
And yeah,
I want to
so, I mean,
weigh in as a former certification aerospace engineer, like amount of time that
Bullshit.
it takes.
No one fucking believes you. Wait a
I'm
minute.
serious. No, I'm serious. I went to school for aerospace engineering.
Is that
I
why
did it
there's a
for-
propeller on your hat?
No, this is because it's dumb and I like it. But
Okay.
I did aerospace for 2 years. I hated it. But when I did do it, I was doing certification for an electric jet in Germany. And the amount of hoops that you have to jump through, the amount of stuff that you have to prove, I think for certain failure cases, it's like 1 times 10 to the negative 9, like a failure. So it's like 1 in every, like to like the giga of like success. Like it has to be that low of a chance that your plane will crash. Like that's how strict certification is. Imagine that, and that was taking 4 to 5 years. Granted, for an experimental technology, compared to the most
Force One.
secure plane on the planet that yes has to do all the things that he listed out, plus a million other things for OPSEC, for safety, for like and it's gifted by a foreign country. Like, there's no way I think this is going to be ready in 2 years.
And we don't get to keep it, right? Like, it would be
Yeah.
one thing if it's like, we're going to get this plane so that every president can have the best Qatari plane outfit or whatever. But like, no, we're not even going to use the plane for future presidents. We're going to get it for a 2-year lease on it. And everyone knows you're not just going to get a plane for a 2-year lease that's that expensive. You're going to use it for 2 years and then you're going to keep using it.
He said he's
motherfucker.
going to keep it. No, he said
Yeah.
like it is part. It's official. Now he says he's not going to use it for his personal use. It's going to be decommissioned and in a sedentary place at the Trump presidential life. Total horse shit. But that's the crazy thing about it. Like when you start to add this up, okay, it's $400 million in value, potentially more than $1 billion worth of taxpayer subsidization of all the upgrades. And then he's still going through with the fucking Boeing contracts, right? Yeah. So like it would be one thing, as you say, Pisco, if he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to take this because we need a new jet. Okay. And I'm canceling the Boeing contract. So we're getting that money back. And I'm leaving this for my successor. Okay. I'm not taking it with me. Then I feel like there would be a colorable case where it's like, okay, you still, I feel like
it's weird, but it wouldn't raise the same kind of issues. But this is like blatant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a wash though, right? Because like Elon with Doge just canceled, $10,000 worth of lesbian squirrel research in the Congo. So, no harm. I mean, it just pays for itself, really.
It is actually really funny when you talk about the paltry, illegal nothing savings of Doge and compare it to just like what the stock market lost in value because of the tariffs. Even by the way, so everyone knows, just because the market starts growing again doesn't mean that there is an opportunity cost and deadweight loss because of the inefficiencies caused by the tariffs. I just want to be very clear about that. But
it's the meme. It's the meme with the MAGA person pointing at the
yes, correct. It's exactly that meme. But when you look at like the savings, whatever, quote unquote, of Doge and compare it to just like any given day of Trump announcing some new extravagant waste of fucking time and money, it's night and day. Like this is going to cost us close to $1 billion where we already have contracts out and where we're not even going to get to fucking keep it.
Speaking of Elon, did you see that Grok is giving like unsolicited responses about South African genocide, white genocide? Have you seen this?
What?
Like people are asking Grok, like, what was the highest grossing film in 1997? And it'll give them the right answer, and then it'll write a paragraph underneath about the claim that there's genocide going on in South Africa. So
as I am trained on the facts, there is indeed a genocide in apartheid white South Africa, and like implying that like they're force feeding it like specific responses that they weren't getting before. They're like trying to like play the AI because it's not cooperating. It's actually kind of insane.
And Grok itself was like telling people a couple weeks ago that XAI was basically trying to train it to be like friendlier to MAGA people, basically.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's so pathetic. But yeah, so I should say there is some preliminary polling on this. YouGov did a poll, and I mean this one's less scientific, but even the right-wing New York Post did a poll on the Trump jet thing, and this shit is not taking off, to use the pun. Like it is not doing well. It is landing about as well as a plane under Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. And by the way, I'm flying on Friday, so I'm nervous as fuck.
Not out of Newark, hopefully.
No, absolutely not. But like. This is so unpopular. You've got Laura Loomer, Ben Shapiro, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal. I like multiple elected Republicans coming out and like, I don't know about this one. So does he go through with it?
Yes,
of course. Wait, why wouldn't he?
I don't think so. I'll say I don't think so.
Go on. All right, go on, Akana boy.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously Trump is he's at least somewhat responsive to public opinion. I mean, I don't think it's totally untethered. And I mean, I think that it really does seem to pose a lot of logistical nightmares for the government. And I just, like you said, the timeline of it seems to make very little sense. Okay, so we've got this $400 million jet, for free or whatever, at least at time zero. And then we still have to spend years and years to retrofit the thing. And like SoyPill said, that's like 2 years that maybe Boeing will say or something, but it's probably going to take longer than that. There's every chance in the world that this takes longer than the time of his second term, So I don't know. I would be surprised if there was ever to be a day when currently in office President Trump, takes a flight on the Qatari.
Well, that's different, but he is going to try to, right? I mean, because I think they've priced in the backlash, right? Did they think that no one was going to fucking notice?
I'm very uncertain. Because I did hear that, I did hear some reporting that Trump was apparently pretty annoyed at all the backlash that he was getting from this.
And okay, unprecedented.
Dude, he's
Well,
losing his fucking shit, like on camera, on True Social. Lost his fucking mind about
Well,
it.
it's clear that it's like, it's like a child who's been promised to go and buy a bicycle, and then like, all of a sudden it's being taken away from him, right? It's like, I really wanted the fucking $400 million jet.
Your mom said it's too dangerous. We can't get it for you, son.
Well, because I do think this is one of those things where Trump does seem to emulate, like he does seem to like look up to other dictators and the shit that they have. When you go to other dictatorial authoritarian countries, like they live in palaces, they don't just live in some shitty White House, right? They have giant luxury jets like the one that Qatar is in theory going to be gifting, not fucking 40-year-old Air Force One or whatever the fuck, right? And so it is clear to me that is a bit of a sticking point for Trump. I mean, I'm curious if Russia had gifted him the jet, if the GOP would be acting a little bit differently. Maybe they would say, oh, this is actually fine all of a sudden. Because I do think, I think it was Josiah's point, that because it's a Middle Eastern country, I think that's why people are, Republicans are like a little bit, they have a permission to be a little bit more aggrieved because, Muslim country, right? So
because of 9/11.
Right. Well, yeah, but yeah, just like I think that's like, I don't know, like it makes you wonder, like if Israel had done it, or if Russia, or if it, some country that Republicans are a little bit more favorable towards had done it, if there would even be nearly the controversy.
Cenk
right?
Uygur made that point. Cenk Uygur said, if this was Israel, they'd be say, yes, sir, of course, sir, we love corruption, sir. That's my Cenk impression.
That's a good Cenk impression.
That actually is a pretty good
impression.
You didn't even do of course. Come
Yeah,
on.
say of course. Yeah, that's a
No,
of course. Come on.
Of course.
He just tweeted about Israel again. Did something happen in the last few days with respect to Israel? He was saying like, if
they
Trump can
published their plans.
Okay, enlighten me. What's going on? I missed this story for some reason.
I believe the Israeli government approved a plan to essentially indefinitely occupy Gaza, and their occupation plan, I believe, was to occupy essentially the about 40% of the landmass of Gaza, and effectively crunch the remaining population into an even smaller land space. And that's all in the backdrop of going on 2.5 months now of not letting any aid in. Starvation deaths are piling up. Like it's just a complete fucking humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. So I don't know, but that's what he specifically was talking about. But that was the big news that I saw a couple days ago.
Well, he was saying if Trump can disentangle us from Israel, then I'll have to give him credit for that. Like, what did Trump say something recently, or did he give a speech? Like,
this is why. This is why, right? Because he's going to Qatar. He's normalizing with Syria, which Israel doesn't want. He is not bombing Iran. And so all of these things, I think, at least the not starting a war with Iran I think is good. I don't think
even relieving Syria's sanctions are good. The problem is
that was the thing as well.
Yeah, the problem is, number one, will he go through with it actually? And number two, it's patently fucking obvious why he's doing this. The new Syrian president the day before was like, how about a Trump hotel Damascus? Right? Like that. I'm sorry. I totally disagree with Tommy Vitor from Pod Save America on this, because he was like, credit where it's due. Thanks. Good job, POTUS, for, lifting Syrian sanctions. Well, number one, motherfucker, let's make sure he does it. And number two, be sure to append to that statement that he's only doing it because of naked, shameless corruption, and that's not a good thing.
Good job, President of Syria, for very effectively maneuvering our idiot president.
Exactly.
Can we try that? Can like California or like the DNC build like a Trump monument somewhere to try to appease him? I think it unironically that's a smart move to like appeal to his narcissism. It's clearly working. So why don't we do it?
It's why Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, like he's like, when he first met with him, he's like, Mr. President, I have something that no other president has ever been given before. A letter from the king asking you for a second state address before the parliament. And it's like, and Trump, who should not give a damn because Charles has no fucking power, right? The Great Britain is diminished in terms of its economic and military might. Like the most powerful man on earth, like clapping like a seal because a king is like, do you want to come speak before? It's like Trump doesn't like to talk to other politicians, and it's just so stupid, but that's how his brain works. Like he was like giggling and shitting himself with joy at the notion of talking to the British Parliament.
The Gulf states have more to give to Trump right now personally than Israel does, and so they're able to outright bribe him and just like openly bribe him for stuff. And so that's why I think you're seeing some of these actions in these different places, and because the Gulf states want to not have a general war with Iran, the Gulf states want to, notwithstanding the fact that they have a rivalry, they have a stake in the negotiations with Iran on the nuclear stuff, and also like they want to have more deals with Kushner, with Trump properties, Trump businesses. I think that's all stuff that like Netanyahu can't offer. That said, he's given Netanyahu an open hand in Palestine, so it's cold comfort to the dead Palestinians who are being slaughtered by Israel.
Yeah.
Well, the blocking humanitarian aid thing is really fucking nuts. Like that's, say what you will about Biden. I think like that was for sure the biggest blemish on his record was his close relationship with Netanyahu. And Josiah, you pointed out that Netanyahu basically humiliated Biden after Trump won. So and all that's valid. But if you read Woodward's book War, he goes into detail of a lot of the behind the scenes Biden administration stuff on the outset of the conflict in Gaza. And the administration, who was the Secretary of State again? Blinken went to, and who was the Defense Secretary? Lloyd Austin. They went to Israel and they're like, okay, what's your plan for humanitarian aid into Gaza? And right off the rip, Israel was like, what do you mean? We're not gonna let any aid in the country. And it was the Biden administration that successfully pushed them and said, no, you have to, that's just not an option.
Yeah. I just want to clarify just real quick, because I'm not a foreign policy guy. There's maybe something I'm probably least educated on it than anybody here. I know that there were some, to the extent that there have been any meaningful concessions by Israel to the people of Gaza. It's come from the Biden administration. Again, the paltry humanitarian aid. That's more than what they're getting under Trump. I want to make that clear that to whatever extent there needs to be credit, that goes to Biden. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there, I don't know if it's because of a transactional element or what, but that Trump is actually more likely at this point to give Netanyahu the finger than Biden was. And just seeing the optics of, after set aside the horrific humanitarian cost, even just the raw politics of it, it's like you look like such a bitch getting smacked around by Netanyahu, if for no other reason than American chauvinism. Why don't you lay down the fucking law? Like, I'm the most powerful man on earth. You're nothing. You do what you're told. And he just wouldn't do it. I feel like Trump is much more likely to do that than Netanyahu at this. Or
really? I mean, so far he's given Netanyahu just carte blanche to do whatever. Like he's not putting any pressure to.
I'm pretty sure there's some recent reporting that Netanyahu is currently walking on eggshells with Trump. I saw this on Twitter in a headline from Axios, and I think this is what Cenk Uygur is referring to. I just think that public defiance of Netanyahu is actually more likely to come from Trump at this point, because Biden was a committed Zionist. There was an ideological sympathy towards Netanyahu's position, even if he didn't like Netanyahu, the person. Trump doesn't give a damn, I think, about Netanyahu or Zionism. It's all about his
Trump
own
is ungovernable.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So
Josiah, if I'm to understand you correctly, it's yes, okay, Biden pushed back a little bit. Obviously, he said, "Oh, red line here," and they kept stepping over those. And he didn't really do much. But Trump, even though he said, "I will let Israel do whatever they want," because he's such like a narcissist, chaotic element. If for some reason Netanyahu gets on the bad side of that, it's like completely balls to the wall. Who knows what's going to happen? He can totally flip. I think I could see that happening, but I wouldn't be optimistic about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's just frustrating.
What Bibi's not getting so far are things that he wasn't going to get under Biden. Like Biden wasn't going to strike Iran. He was trying to prevent that. He was trying to prevent escalation there. So I think everything that Bibi's not getting the resistance or on things that he wouldn't also get with Biden for the most part. Though I do agree that element is there that for whatever reason Trump is able to, I think, be more credibly threatening to Netanyahu than Biden was. Biden was a doormat to Bibi, and it was one of, I think, the worst policies he had.
Well, I think that certainly I think that at the very least we could say that Biden had a lot more pressures from his base and from, probably there was a lot of reporting that members of the State Department were extremely upset with how Biden in general was handling the Israeli, Palestinian conflict. Right. And whereas, with Trump's administration, it's clear that you could starve half the fucking children in Gaza to death, and I'm not sure that anybody in the Trump State Department would give that much of a fuck about that, because they have this kind of isolationist demeanor, because they're probably much more pro-Israeli in general. But to Josiah's point, I think that Netanyahu understands that Trump is, he acts much more authoritarianly, right? It's much more personality driven. It's much more interpersonal driven, right? And so you can't just disrespect Trump in one way or another and expect that he's going to give you everything you want. He's the kind of guy who would all of a sudden start saying, we need to stop arms sales to Israel because you disrespected him, not because of any sort of principled position.
I would be
so
shocked if he ever opposed arms sales to Israel. I mean, it would have their relationship would have to be completely annihilated.
Yeah, but
let's go with a cartoonish example. Maybe you disagree on this, Hush, but let's go to like a cartoonish example. We'll see if this kind of like if this helps better explain where some of us are coming from. If Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference in Tel Aviv and said, President X is a bitch, who would handle that more gracefully, Trump or Biden?
I mean, Biden, obviously.
Biden, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. What kind of a question is this? Let me ask you a question. If you're Netanyahu, who would you rather be president, Biden or Trump?
I think initially Netanyahu was hoping Trump, obviously, right? Because
right now, I'm saying right now, do you think that he wishes that Kamala would have won or Biden would have won? No, probably not, right?
No, yeah. The person I think that let them do whatever they want is probably who he wants.
I think that he ultimately prefers Trump, but obviously Trump just has his own challenges. I mean, one of the rock bottom arguments from the pro-Palestinian left, which I've always been sympathetic to, is this idea that, look, one of the only reasons why Israel, isn't doing X, Y, and Z, multiple humanitarian impact, I guess, in the Gaza Strip is because they're tethered to some understanding of international relations and this and that, and they don't want to totally piss off everyone. But obviously, as soon as Trump gets into office and it's like, well, there's probably no level of humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza that's going to truly piss off Trump to where he's going to do anything about it. Well, all of a sudden, that's when you see aid gets completely cut off and they're going to indefinitely occupy Gaza. All of these much, much more disastrous things start happening. This is one of the arguments of people who called it a genocide was that, and again, that I'm sympathetic to, that, the thing about Israel is that the right-wing government of Israel has these what you could call genocidal intentions at the very, very, very least, right? That, okay,
rhetoric.
Whatever we can, we're right. It's like we can, well, not just rhetoric, like actual intention that like we can split hairs on what the magnitude of the problem is, or what the actual mechanical things happening on the ground are. But an untethered Israel, untethered to demands from the U.S., is going to do much, much, much worse, more genocidal things. And that appears to have been proven true, essentially right as Trump took office, save for some foreign policy things, but domestic sort of issues within Israel and involving the Gaza Strip, it appears that
Hutch,
Israel has
when you're
free rein
done,
on.
can we give Hutch and the SoyPill the last word on this? I want to play one more clip to close the loop on the Trump corruption thing, because to me this is a huge one. But Hutch and then SoyPill. Go ahead, Hutch.
Well, yeah, no, I was just gonna say for the people that really focus on the word genocide, this is for sure the most justification that you can give for something like the blocking of humanitarian aid is an escalation that will have consequences that are almost unimaginable. There's 80%, I think, of Gaza relies on international aid to eat. And it's just completely unacceptable. And it's pretty horrifying that we don't have an administration that's, pressuring for these kinds of things. Say what you will about Biden, but, he did successfully pressure them on a number of occasions.
They started with this. They started with the full blockade of all aid. That was like their first move.
In the beginning, you mean?
And in the beginning, one of the first things they did was to cut off all aid, and eventually that was released over time. But now as you said, it's worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to add other than, it's awful what's happening there, and it's sad that this was, at least in a lot of, I'm in the Bay Area, for a lot of people I know who didn't vote, and it's California, but I know a lot of people around the country had similar thoughts of, oh, this is why I'm not voting for Kamala. It sucks to see that, yes, she wasn't doing what we wanted her to do in terms of helping out the Gazans, but it's so much worse now, and everything is worse for every other issue as well. It's very depressing, and I hope we find a way to fix this. And if somehow some Palestinian representative is able to, say, hey, we'll build a better Trump Tower than Netanyahu, then maybe we can turn this around.
Yeah. All right, one last clip on the Trump corruption thing. This is from the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, MAGA Mike, who is a self-professed constitutional scholar who loved legislative oversight of the executive when President Biden was in office. Well, he was asked and had a really disastrous answer about the Trump corruption.
Mr. Speaker, you were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry as a result of it. Are you equally concerned about President Trump's family's business dealings, especially given the fact that he is in a region now where his family has billions of dollars of investments in Doha and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that he has a crypto business now where he's auctioned off access to the White House for the highest bidder in the union?
Look, there are authorities that police executive branch ethics rules. I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is here in the House, okay? I'll say that the reason many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it, and they repeatedly lied about it, and they set up shell companies, and the family was all engaged in getting all on the dole. Whatever the President Trump is doing is out in the open. They're not trying to conceal anything.
Mr. Speaker, the investment in the meme coin, those folks are not transparent. We do not know who those people are.
I don't know anything about the meme coin thing. I don't know. I can just tell you that, I mean,
Dude,
President Trump
you.
has had nothing to hide. He's very upfront about it, and there are people who watch all the ethics of that. But I mean, I've got to be concerned with running the House of Representatives.
All right, how much of a fucking loser
What a
is this guy?
piece of shit. What a piece of Joanna's completely right. So Joanna came out with this earlier than anyone. She said that the reason the Biden stuff sticks where the Trump stuff doesn't, well, many reasons, but one of the key ones is because it feels like there's subterfuge with the Biden stuff. People say this kind of thing, and they actually feel it, right? The secret stuff makes it feel more impactful, right? But this is just the lowest of the low. Mike Johnson is a worm. He is scarcely human. This person should go to hell. It's an incredible, state of our country. The fact that we're in this position right now, and we have someone who has demonstrated such horrible double standards and unable to see the blatant corruption in his face, I think is just an indictment of our country.
Is he the one who monitors his son porn intake, or is that a different Mike Johnson? Am I thinking of the right guy?
That is the same guy. I was going to say one of the funny things about what he just said was he's like, yeah, look, there's people that look into this. And, what he's obviously neglecting to point out is that Donald Trump is the people who look into this, right? Like he's talking about executive agencies who, in theory, of course, would be independent and hold the president accountable, the offices of the inspector generals, and
Which
the law
he got rid of a bunch of them, right? He fired all the
right. I mean, there was a story that came out just today talking about how Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI,
I was just about to mention that,
yeah, she fired two officials who released a report that contradicted one of Donald Trump's claims. And so the idea that you would ever have, an agency within this administration be able to openly or with any actual resource investigate their own administration is just a completely it's a joke, frankly. It's ridiculous.
It was two people in intelligence that came to the conclusion that Tren de Aragua were not being directed by Maduro, and she fired them.
Bro, Pisco, did you see this? Because I tagged you in it. Did you see that shit?
Yeah, no, I saw what you tagged me, and I was like, bro, it's the same shit when they admitted that Kilmar Garcia's deportation was illegal, because of course it was. They fire people who tell the truth, even on so this is what the administration is demanding of its own employees: is you need to be party to the lie, even if it defies the intelligence. And in this case, we have two people who say, hey, look, Maduro's actually not behind Tren de Aragua. There's actually not a physical incursion and invasion into the United States. And by the way, there's been one Trump-appointed judge who has said that it does meet the definition. That's counter to the 4 or 5 other judges, some of whom are Trump, who said that it doesn't meet the definition, just to be clear, of where we stand on litigation.
The Judge Haynes, I think?
Out of somewhere. But just to be clear, I believe that
out of her fucking mind.
If they reach the merits, the original public meaning of the terms physical incursion and invasion obviously aren't met by Tren de Aragua. And you can only get to that by giving and assuming all of the executive facts, which they've now demonstrated. They're not just willing to lie about it, they're willing to fire people who don't participate in the lie. So it's all just a big sham.
Do you ever have the time or the bandwidth to contemplate, like, let's say we retake the House in 2026. Nate Silver's getting increasingly bullish that we stand an increasingly good chance of retaking the Senate. Like, I wish I were that optimistic, but pretty good chance we retake the House.
Is he baking a recession into that analysis?
Medicaid.
Yeah, I think it's the Medicaid the reconciliation bill, which, by the way, Fox News admitted today that this fucking
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But do you guys ever like spend the time to contemplate? Okay, let's say we do win in 2028, and a Democratic president is inaugurated in January 2029. How fucking hard and thankless and grueling it will be to try to put this shit back together. Like sometimes to think about it, and like this could be at the current rate they're going, this could be a multi-decade effort to just
100%.
get us back to where we were on January 19th, 2025, you know?
That's what we need to be telling people, though. That's how we need to be framing politics, is treat this like a long-term project. Don't go in there expecting to get everything you want in 2 years. You know, expect that you're going to have to vote in every midterm and every general for the next 20 years. The Republicans laid the groundwork to take over the judiciary back in the fucking like 80s and 90s. They've been planning this shit. So like, obviously we have to match that energy.
Hutch, I actually have to disagree, although you're correct insofar as what we have to tell people. People have terrible long-term planning, and I always bring this up. Do you guys know about like the marshmallow test, where it's like you can give a kid a marshmallow and you say, hey, if you can have this marshmallow now, but if you wait 5 minutes, I will give you 2 marshmallows. Most kids fail this. It is a way to teach them like long-term gratification, but I think most people just don't have this. This is why until they see the direct effects of, hey, like Roe v. Wade got overturned, and that's why we kind of pushed back against the big red wave in 2022, or you know, all these tariffs are gonna like not even show for months, and then we're gonna see this giant drop off, maybe a recession, but not until like, I don't know, let's say the end of this year. That might be forgotten by people. Like they might not remember what caused it and what happened 2 years from now. The long term, like, yes, like USAID on its own dismantling this is going to kill generations of people, potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions, over the course of like 5, 10, 15 years. I think people are just going to fucking forget. That's usually what happens. And no matter how
forget, they forgot. Like it's done. Like
they don't even know about it.
Yeah.
What you're describing basically puts the Republicans at a permanent advantage.
Yes.
Because they run on breaking shit. They run on not getting stuff done, not passing bills, but breaking government.
That's why run on big ideas. What I mean to say is I agree with Hutch's outlook that it absolutely is like, and also Josiah's like 10-year, 15-year plans to recover from the shit. But you got to sell big ideas. We're fixing it now. And you know what? You got to put some killers in the administration. I'm so done with it metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically, we got to throw that out there. But like, let's deal with that, because Hutch, you're right. And this is one of the things I used to bitch about more often. I need to start complaining about it more. But yeah, they have an inherent advantage because it's easier to tear down than it is to build. Or even if we really want to be charitable, it's easier just to keep, like, let's say, you know, a Trump supporter or, you know, Republican will come back to we don't want to tear things down. We just want to keep things the way they are. Well, even that stasis is easier than progression. And that's just the beginning of their advantages. They have, you know, again, a 6-3 conservative supermajority. The Senate construction favors them. You know, I think it was in 2021 when it was 50-50 split. The Democratic caucus represented 40 million more people than the Republicans. The House is becoming increasingly advantaged towards the Republicans, and the census is coming up. And if blue states are shedding population the way that we currently are, we may be locked out of the House in that respect. The blue wall won't be sufficient. The Electoral College generally benefits us. They control 30 out of 50 state legislatures. The biggest mainstream news network by far in this country, they like 2x CNN and MSNBC is Fox. You have alternative media. Pisco's best friend, Tim Pool, is bigger than like 4 me's and Adam Mockler and everybody put together. They have colossal advantages. And we're still obligated to play the shitty hand that we've been dealt to the best of our ability.
Josiah, I want to give one concrete example. If the Republicans cut Medicaid, and maybe even if they don't, I think every single Democrat should run on Medicare for all. And they should say, the Republicans ruined healthcare. Now we need Medicare for all. I think every single Democrat should run on that 100%. And that's not to say that I think single payer, is the end all be all that shit. But we just need to run on big fucking ideas and take some of this corruption, use it to our advantage, and say they broke it, and now we need big ideas to fix it.
Well, but it's not. I don't think it's just necessarily about running on the big ideas. This also, you can create a system that essentially recreates itself, right? Because, for instance, the Republicans, they're not talking about cutting Medicare as much, right? That wasn't a big part of their recent proposals. They're not talking about cutting Social Security as much. That wasn't a big part of their recent proposals. Obviously, there's a section of the GOP that would advocate for cutting those things, but they're talking about cutting Medicaid, right? Now, why is that, right? It's because the way that Medicaid is designed is to be this incredibly fucking means tested, like, compartmentalized, state run system. There's just a lot of people who have either no experience at all with Medicaid, or they have a negative experience with Medicaid. Like, there's people who say, I'm voting for the Republicans to fix Medicaid because my Medicaid sucks, right? Without realizing what exactly they're doing. And that's the reason why, of course, Republicans feel so comfortable cutting it. It's because for a long time, Democrats, by running on these kind of meager ideas, oh, a means tested program here, a work requirement program here, and they create programs like that. Those are programs that are suboptimal. Those are programs that people are going to hate because their experience with them is complex and it's not helpful a lot of times. Unemployment insurance, let's use that as an example. Of all the unemployed people in this country, only about a third of them actually receive unemployment benefits because of all of the requirements, both actual, statutory requirements to receive it, but then the mechanical administrative requirements to receive it. So many people fall down the loop. So even if you talk to an unemployed person potentially about cutting unemployment insurance or getting rid of the waste in unemployment insurance, right? That's going to resonate with them because unfortunately for a long time, Democrats have just done these policies in very, very suboptimal ways. So the big ideas thing can help provide hopefully some longevity to these programs because everyone pays into them and everyone takes out to them.
You're gonna need like a. Sorry, who else was speaking?
Well, I was going to say, sorry, Hutch, I was on unemployment for like 2 months when I got laid off a couple years ago. And as someone who I would consider myself like at least smart enough to navigate most like bullshit little administrative systems, the difficulty and annoying hoops you have to jump through to get that money is kind of ridiculous. I mean, like I figured it out eventually, but knowing how many people are like, hey, I just got laid off from I'm paying my every paycheck to paycheck job. I have 2 kids. I'm doing all this other crap. And now I got to figure out this stupid system. I completely agree that like looking at that and saying this is a bloated, stupid mess, where in comparison, when I was in Germany, I needed healthcare. I got my little card and I walked over to the scanner and I scanned it, bam, healthcare, right? Like I think running on those ideas of making it simpler is good. And unfortunately saying, hey, let's cut back on the waste when people see all this administrative bloat is a very like resounding message for people. Like, yeah, it is wasteful. It is inefficient. It does take me forever to get it. And if you just say, I'm going to fix it and not tell them, hey, I'm going to, cut your Medicaid and you're not going to get benefits and all these hospitals are going to close, like that works for certain people, unfortunately.
I'm skeptical of what you guys are proposing right now, just because like Bernie ran on Medicare for all, and the last 2 cycles in a row, and he lost the second time worse than he lost this time. So like I want it to happen too. Like I want some form of single payer. Like I wouldn't go as far as him to like ban private insurance, for example. Yeah. But like
Medicare for all who want it.
Exactly. Yeah. But
it just rolls off the tongue, Josiah. So good.
Thank you.
If you're going to get that done, you would need realistically like more than 60 senators probably, because you're going to have like definitely a handful that are going to be more moderate, and they're going to run on like protecting healthcare systems instead of
these are fiscal changes, right? So I mean, in theory, you'd only need the majority even with the filibuster. But I think that to underscore that, I'm not saying that if a Democrat runs on universal welfare programs, that's necessarily going to be the most popular thing in the world. I think, honestly, something like Lyndon Johnson did, right? Like Lyndon Johnson, he actually, when he ran for re-election, when Kennedy was assassinated, that election that he actually ran for, he didn't run on the war on poverty. That wasn't like a big part of his messaging in that election. A big part of his messaging, frankly, was the opposite. It was about like, oh, the Kennedy administration and we cut taxes, we cut regulation. They used a lot of that same rhetoric of like sort of these small governments under Democrats of the time. I guess, Lyndon Johnson, obviously from Texas. But then when they actually won, they got their mandate, they went into office, they said, okay, what's our big initiative that we're going to do while we're in office? It's going to be the war on poverty, right? Like we're going to do all these things that we promised, which was a skinnier version of what we wanted to do. And we're going to do all of these big changes now that we're actually in office and we have the political capital. It is hard to run on increasing taxes and increasing public services. That's just a very difficult thing to run on. But it is equally hard to get rid of those programs once they are actually passed, because when it comes to public services and tax revenue, it's clearly like 95% just an attitudinal barrier. It just sounds bad to a lot of people to increase taxes. But when their grandma's getting their Social Security check and they're getting Medicare and their public transit's actually pretty quality, it turns out people really appreciate those services when they're around. So I think that's kind of the strategy that I would want the Democrats to do. Run on a reasonably skinny and narrow platform of a couple of big ideas.
Sounds
but
like
then
lying.
when you're in office, well, it's not lying. I mean, obviously you can have initiatives as they come up, right? But oh, we discovered all this mess and this is what we're going to do, obviously, like Josiah said. But then you also insulate yourself and say, yeah, whatever, taxes went up, this and that, but we also provided this and that to millions of people. Vote me out of office if you have that big of a problem with it. And historically, and it's why things like Social Security and Medicare have been insulated from this kind of thing, those things just don't really get cut that much.
Well, I'm looking at the congressional makeup in 1964, and it was in the House of Representatives. It was 295 Democrats to 140 Republicans. They had basically a supermajority in that.
You need to be able to control your caucus, and I am assuming a Democratic majority government. I mean, you're never going to be able to get Republicans to come on board with this. If Democrats in office are too scared to pass anything bold, then we're forever going to be the party of losers that doesn't get shit done. I mean, again, the countries and the presidents that were able to do such bold things.
You don't think it's up to us to deliver the Congress that would be able to pass these bills?
No, that's what I'm saying is you have to win the seats. But one thing that we stress on this podcast that, of course, you agree with as well, is that the Democrats that you elect are important, right? You can't just elect anybody with a D next to their name. You can't just elect anybody who has like sort of the establishment backing. You need to elect Democrats that are willing to be bold and courageous
in the primary.
Policies,
right?
In the primary, right? You can't just say like you can't have a bunch of Glues and Stamp Perez's out there that are like, oh my goodness, I don't know if the people can stomach a 1% increase in their payroll tax. No, like you have to be bold. You can't just be scared to propose anything because you're going to get called a socialist because, they raised taxes. You have to be willing to propose these things because, hey, guess what? One thing that we haven't mentioned, these are also just the best way to do things, right? Like these are also just the best policies. And in theory, a government should propose the best policies. God
I just want to say, like, I do agree. I'm really concerned about like what Hutch said, because I agree with the sense, like, these margins obviously would help out substantially. The problem is, that's why I'm really concerned about the next census. I mean, we're seeing blue states, shed population. This is like so much of the impetus behind the what's that Ezra Klein book? The Abundance, right? Yeah. And I know like Abundance is catching a lot of shit, and understandably so, with respect to, like, for example, the internet DEI requirements of the Inflation Reduction Act. It was the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill that, all these Democrats add. Yeah, exactly. They were just dead wrong on that. But the thing behind it, which is, if Democratic states don't become more affordable and quick to live in, people are going to leave for red states, which will increase the districts and redistricting in favors of red states. And I am worried about that. So to Hutch's point, like, are you guys concerned about that at all, about what this next apportionment's going to look like?
I'm very concerned, Econo Boy. I'm concerned.
I'll make my argument after you. Yeah, go for it.
I'm very concerned. I think that there needs to be something done about Democrat state governments, Democrat municipal governments. I don't know if the answer is the abundance framework or whatever that is, but there needs to be a push towards getting shit done faster and getting things done more effectively and marketing it better. I don't know that I have all the solutions to that right now, but it's something that needs to occur because, frankly, quick shout out to Christina Applegate, but do you think Jared Golden is going to vote for the package that the Republicans are putting in Congress right now?
Christina Applegate. Are you talking about
that reference? Eric Andre reference, I believe.
Don't worry about it. But Josiah, do you think that Jared Golden will vote for the Republican package?
Oh, the guy in that swing state in Maine or whatever?
Yeah, do you think he'll vote for it?
That would be crazy.
I feel like there's a I'm going to say 60-40 no, that he's not, but it's that close.
So to me, that goes to show you that, yes, we're a big tent party, but we have no through line. What if we can't get every single one of our caucus members to vote against the big, beautiful bill, which is a fucking love letter to all the special Republican interests and all the rich people? What do we stand for? There's no through line there. And that is a problem both on the national level and at the state level.
I'm personally not as concerned about the reapportionment, just because I don't know. The only reason I'm not concerned about it is because it's like these people aren't just disappearing into the black hole of Republican states, right? Like, it seems like we've seen that over time on the margin that a lot of these states have sort of shifted a little bit more blue. Now, some of them have shifted more red. Like some of these immigration flows aren't created equal. Like it seems like in California, if you're the type of Californian, I've heard people analyze this way. If you're the type of Californian that moves to Idaho, you're a really conservative Californian. But if you're the type of Californian that moves to Austin, you're really liberal. You're just making Texas a bit more liberal, right? And so I think by 2032 would be the first presidential election after reapportionment. I wouldn't be surprised to see like purple state Texas or like like even more solidly blue Virginia.
Well,
right?
hey,
things like that.
Okay, since you mentioned fucking Texas, I've not to totally derail this, but hot take. I think Ken Paxton winning the primary would be the best thing for Democrats in Texas. Hot take.
For Senate, or what it was? Is this for
Ken,
Senate?
Yeah, Ken Paxton, the AG
Against,
is. I don't know if he's announced, but he's polling way ahead of John Cornyn. Is he announced? Well, number one, is he announced?
I don't think he's officially announced yet, but he's seems like all but guaranteed that he's going to run in the primary.
And if he does, he sweeps the primary.
Wait, Josiah, if Ken Paxton wins, it's horrible. That guy's insane.
Of course he's insane, but I'm saying, I think, okay, here's my hot take. I think if Ken Paxton wins the Republican primary, I think we take John Cornyn's seat. That's my hot take. I think we get a blue seat in the United States Senate from Texas.
There was hypothetical polling, I mean, before the campaign even started, that Ken Paxton was losing to hypothetically Colin Allred, who got trounced in this last election. Like he's clearly not the strongest Democrat to run in that primary, but even Colin Allred was polling pretty favorably against Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is an extremely he's like the Marjorie Taylor Greene of Texas, basically. He just doesn't get a lot of national attention because he's just the state level AG. But
because I agree,
in Texas, he's
just in charge of enforcing Texas state law. No biggie. I mean, the guy
wasn't he impeached for corruption?
Yes,
he was impeached by the state Republicans.
By the Republicans, he's so fucking he's crazy even by Texas Republicans.
Well, he had a challenger. He had a Louis Gohmert, who was a MAGA right wing challenger, who was a congressman, and George P. Bush, who was the Texas land commissioner. Both like from opposite ends of the party, challenged him in the primary, and he won the primary overwhelmingly. But he's the point that Josiah is making is that he's an extremely controversial figure, and I think it's correct to say that if he were the nominee in 2026, I guess it would be, the Democrat. Their best shot of winning in Texas would be running a really strong Democrat against Ken Paxton. And I think, especially because that's probably such a tilt blue year, the Democrat could win. I mean, keep in mind, in 2018, the last midterm Texas Senate election with Beto O'Rourke, he came within 2 points of beating Ted Cruz, right? So, I mean, in theory, if the environment is even more favorable than 2018, which I have every reason to believe that it would be, you could absolutely see a Democrat win the midterm.
You want to run Beto?
Yeah, it's not more of like Ted Cruz is really unpopular more than Beto is very popular. He ran on banning AR-15s. Right?
No,
because actually not particularly.
We have to remember, 2018 Beto was really popular. He was a very, very popular candidate in 2018. And I was just going to say, Josiah, before you blow the fuck up, is that Ken Paxton is also very unpopular. He can just win Republican primaries, but he's still very unpopular.
I've got the winner right here.
Chicken dinner.
Okay.
Lock it in.
Ken Paxton wins the Republican primary. Our Democratic nominee is not Beto. It's not Colin Allred. It's the woman that Ken Paxton nearly killed with his fucking abortion restriction that I can't remember her name, Amanda Young or something like that. The woman who had to flee from go run out of state because Paxton threatened to prosecute her, even though there was a court order, a restraining order against Ken Paxton. And she nearly died as a consequence of that. And I know she was like doing commercials and stuff for the DNC during last year's election. We get her to run, and it's Ken Paxton versus her. She sweeps.
I don't know.
Tell
if
me I'm
she's
fucking
a-
crazy.
I
Tell
think
me
you
I'm
might be
a
crazy.
spiral to the bottom strategy where we just keep doubling down on being stupid as they're being and
She might
crazy
not
as
be
they're
a
being. and-
talented politician.
Well, obviously,
but-
like if she,
SoyPill
well,
just
there's-
mocked you, dude. He
there's
came in
no
here.
fucking-
he's-
No, to be fair, I actually do think that we should be more woke. Dark woke, I think, is a thing that will work. And I've advocated for
Look, just-
the next candidate to call Donald Trump retarded in a debate.
Josiah,
Like,
I
I
mean,
think that
we've-
would actually work.
Wait,
but-
why
got-
is that crazy? SoyPill, were you talking to me? Why is
I
that
was talking to
crazy?
you. I was just asking. It seems like potentially bad, but I also kind of agree with the tactic of like we kind of have to.
He
like,
he nearly got her killed. She
No,
made-
but
made
Josiah,
national headlines.
she might not be a good like. You have to do so much. It's a skill set to be a politician. Like I don't know that she would have the.
You would
Marjorie
nominate
Taylor
the
Greene.
tree that you would nominate the tree that almost killed Greg Abbott. I mean, that's just a meme. Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Look, we got Jasmine.
I want to ask based on
Jasmine
what you guys were
Crockett
saying.
and-
Obviously, if she's like, listen, obviously, little.
Hold on, let the
asterisk here.
guest speak.
Sorry, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Edge. I was going to ask, based on what you're talking before, of like, oh, we need to put in these like big idea Democrats in. When like I don't know if this is on the docket for today, but the whole like David Hogg trying to like reform from inside the party and then immediately getting ejected, or any of these kind of like big name like Chuck Schumer guys that are like in charge, I guess Nancy Pelosi, who are kind of just so adverse to these big changes. How do you even get that done if these people never get primaried out and they reject all the people trying to reform internally?
Oh, it's primaries, SoyPill. It's primaries. I mean, obviously, you can kick David Hogg out of his DNC leadership position, but that super PAC is still going to be a thing, and the base is angry. I mean, I think this is one of the things that we've said on this show before, that one of the things that establishment Democrats had going for them for a long time, which was it was very fair for them to say things like this. Oh yeah, you wild-eyed lefty populist types, like whatever, win a primary and then come talk to me. And it's like, hey, to be fair, progressives couldn't win primaries, right? Yeah.
Of the world.
Yeah, that's a Hutch argument. But no, like for a long time, progressives did
Just kidding,
struggle in
Hutch, I'm
primaries.
kidding.
And people who rocked the boat did struggle in primaries. But Democratic leadership had the support of its base. But that is not true anymore. I mean, Democratic leaderships, their popularity amongst Democrats is in the toilet. And so they're, I think in 2020, what would it be, 2026, I think you'll see like half a dozen prominent Democrats get primaried, or like establishment types, not necessarily all by progressives, but you'll see, the fighting Dems caucus, I guess, start to take off. Maybe Jenk's super PAC will take off. Maybe they'll elect a couple of people.
What if you guys, now hear me out. What if you guys are well to the left of the median Democratic voter?
I am.
Okay.
God, I'm so far
checking
left
in
compared to
about
the
that.
average Democrat.
I'm exactly
How much
correct.
you want to bet the David Hogg's project is going to be wildly unsuccessful?
I mean, I don't know.
That kind of thinking.
I'll bet money. I'll put money on it right now.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that. Like, I think that
Like he's
and I
not going
don't
to
know-
primary too many people. He's not going to be very successful.
Well, I already said like of the like 200 Democrats running for re-election, I think maybe like a dozen will get it's not that high of a percentage. Like I don't, and I don't know that it'll all be by David Hogg, but that's what happened with the Republican Party over the course of like a decade when they transformed from neocons to Tea Party, when they transformed from Tea Party to MAGA. That was a relatively slow process over the course of a decade until they're all like reduced down into like peak MAGA, right? And then you might see the next thing come by. The Democrats have been very static, like kind of like centrist, center-left.
I don't want to
for
rest
20
on our
years.
laurels. This is what I'm concerned about. I don't want to rest on our laurels. I want talented people. Like we have a rare opportunity here. Shout out Omaha, the Nebraska mayoral election, where the Republican candidate Stothert, I forgot her name, after I think having the position for over a decade, or at least like a 5-term
Very long
incumbent
time.
mayor, she lost to the Democratic candidate. And so there's a growing sense of resentment and anger and frustration in this country. And it's not about left or right. I'll stress this again. It's about fighters. I want someone who's
You sound
strong
like Andrew
and
Yang,
wants to
not left, not right, but forward.
But Yang's kind of he's kind of soy.
Yeah.
And so I want people who are going to be strong, and I want to see it in these fights, the fights that we have right now on the Republican plan, in any kind of budget reconciliation fight, any kind of like a debt ceiling fight. I want to see our Democratic leaders in the Senate, in the House, do the right thing and be strong. What I'm concerned about is we're not going to be on our game and messaging in this reconciliation fight. I hope I'm wrong about that. And I've seen some good thing out of the usual suspects, right? Who are the usual suspects? AOC,
Jerry
Bernie,
Connolly, Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, I know.
This mayor. Sorry, go ahead.
Go. You go.
I'm just looking at his. I mean, he's an ex-cop and he looks like a super moderate. Just to be clear.
Again, it's not for me. It's not political.
I'm just saying.
You keep getting like triggered about us. We're not talking about progressive versus moderate. We're talking about the type of rhetoric and the type of demeanor that they employ, right? I mean, that's
specific example
versus moderate, but I don't think
that's specific example. I'm just saying.
I'm imagining that it is though, Econo Boy. That's what.
Well, you guys are saying like I want fucking fighters that are gonna fucking promise big bold things, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, do you have the votes?
I'll give you an example of a moderate fighter, Jared Moskowitz. Jared Moskowitz. When I interviewed him at the DNC, I guess I was surprised.
JB Pritzker.
JB Pritzker's another one. At how moderate he was, because he was like. We got on the subject of Supreme Court reform, and I was like, my heart was pitter pattering. I was waiting for him to like, yeah, fucking yeah, pack the court. And he's like, no, we don't want to do anything extreme like pack the court. And I'm like, oh, fuck. But
wait, Jack, can you pull up Joanna's comment? I think it's funny.
What is it? Let's see.
One bed.
Oh shit! Wow,
Joanna's like
messed up.
I have. Now I want to ask her who she voted for. Oh wait, no, hold on. Is she an American citizen?
Oh,
she's Australian.
No, okay.
Yeah, get the hell out of here. That might as well be European.
I have literally never in my life voted Republican. I will never vote Republican ever in a million years.
Well, wait, Hutch, I was curious about this.
It's gonna be like, you're just one bad day.
Hutch, your background is like gaming, right? You used to be a
taxi driver, but it's Hutch.
He's a very famous gamer. Yeah.
Yeah, because like my friend used to talk about you all the time. When I found out you're in politics, I knew like the way that he would talk about you was with all the gaming bros, and a lot of those gaming bros do kind of tend. A lot of them shifted right. There's
I did not fuck with
Gamergate. FPS Kyle and all
I did not fuck with Gamergate ever. Like no, none of that.
Asmongold panel.
See. Hutch's next PKA appearance. We'll see.
I'm all about radical pragmatism. That's all I'm saying. Just radical pragmatism. Just having realistic expectations for things. That's all. Like I feel like coming off the heels of an election where like fucking 90% of the country shifted to the right. Like I feel like tempering our expectations for what comes next in the next like 2 to 6 years is probably a good idea, but you guys are all about like running on big, bold, like
people are passionate right now, Hutch. We're gonna sit here and be like, "Oh, guys, sorry about that loss. I guess we'll just do a little, a little midtermy thing."
I'm not saying that.
Sorry. I don't know. It seems a little limp. I just gotta say,
I'm not. Well, I mean, look at
you're being nice to me, Hutch. You gotta hit me back. Come on.
In 2018, for example, like the way that we won back the House in convincing fashion was just saying we were going to protect the ACA. That's all it took back then. So I'm just not seeing like the evidence that you guys are seeing that the country is like ripe for a sock dem revolution. I'm just not seeing that.
Hutch, that's not what we're saying, Hutch. We're not saying that it's going to be the fucking socialist vanguard in 2026 taking over. We're just saying that
the vanguard boys, they're going to be popping up any second.
We're just saying
he's breaking us up.
So what promises? Okay, well, I mean, like, give me some like, what promises do you want to run on?
Well, no, Hachi Pisco just brought up that governor, and you yourself looked him up, and it was like, this guy's kind of moderate. And that Pisco's like, yeah, exactly. It's not the sock dem necessarily. It's the guy who's going to go up there and be like, fuck these dipshit Republicans. Here's my big message. Yeah. Let me win. Right? That's the message that needs, because people are impassioned, people are angry. You don't have to go up there and say, hey, definitely Medicare for all, and like
I
some
love
like
moderates.
Yeah, I love moderates can win. Like leftists maybe can win, but like there's a spectrum of winners. We just need fighters right now, because right now we've got fucking Chuck Schumer like, guns are bad, right? No one fucking turns their worded letters.
Hutch agrees with that.
I do.
I want to be fair to Hutch. We're kind of painting him as like the forever moderate. I don't think he's like that moderate. I don't think he's like
I'm not even moderate, bro. I guarantee you I am to the left of like 95% of the country.
He wants to win.
That's it. That's it.
I understand.
That's literally it. Like when we talk about the looming threat of fascism, like I take that shit serious. I genuinely consider it a threat. When I think of America, if we succumbed to the sort of thing that Germans did in the 30s or whatever, it would be like worse than the Third Reich. If that power became ascendant in this country, it would be that bad. And so to that end, I'm willing to form a coalition with fucking who the fuck ever, John
Dick
Fetterman
Cheney,
included. I don't
Liz
give a
Cheney.
fuck. Like, I just want like
Fetterman's gotta go. Fetterman's gonna go.
whatever. I mean, I'm just like, I wouldn't mind if he was replaced, but like,
He's
I'm
gonna
glad
drive
it's
you
him.
into
I
a
don't
wall
know.
with his car like he did his wife, Hutch. It's not the way
Wait,
forward.
what?
What did he do with his wife?
He
What
like
now?
he like was speeding and he almost killed his wife in like a car accident, right?
Post stroke?
Yeah, post stroke.
Why
Dude,
is he
everything-
driving?
Oh, I didn't
Bro,
hear about
Fetterman's
that.
gotta go.
Everything about Fetterman, like I don't like the idea that like he had a stroke and that's why he went like crazy all of a sudden. But like
The
It's just-
reporting
look,
the reporting about it strongly
No, yeah,
suggests
like,
that's what
if-
it was.
I remember in like 2018 talking to friends about like, man, there's this guy named John Fetterman. I really like him. And like, because John Fetterman was, by fucking any record that you could look at, a fighting
I never liked him.
progressive, right?
I never
Peace
liked
goes
him.
lying. Don't
supported
listen to
Connor
him,
Lamb.
audience.
I
Anyway.
supported Connor Lamb. I was disappointed when Fetterman won.
Well, look, the point is though, is that for any record you could look at, Fetterman was a fighting progressive. He was lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania before he was a senator. And, you know, he didn't act like this when he was lieutenant governor, right? I mean, again, he maintained his progressive bona fides that whole time. And again, when he ran for Senate, he had a lot of progressive endorsements, you know, major endorsements, you know, Bernie Sanders, for instance, right? And it just, man, he had that stroke and fucking, it just really does seem like he has kind of lost his marbles. And
Brain damage makes you more right wing. What can we say? It's like
Yeah.
demonstrating it.
What
in
if
real
he was
time.
just always this like super pro Israel the whole time, and it just took the conflict to expose that? Like, does anybody know if he had like this level of dedication?
No, he didn't. He hadn't even barely commented on that at all before you know, the October
So it was a
7th
lie
attacks
of
happened.
omission and not a lie of commission. Then.
Well,
I mean,
I'll have you know
there's a
that
chance,
the
but-
Mossad did offer him a really nice pair of silk shorts, I think, right after he got elected to Senate. And
God, I hate
since
this
then,
short.
yeah,
You know,
something, yeah.
I used to laugh at all of the conservatives who've been like, "Why don't you wear a suit, bro?" But like, I have to be honest. Seeing him at the signing of the Lake and Riley Act in his fucking gym shorts, that did something to me.
No,
I'm
I
like,
know you because
put
you
on a
did. You were
fucking
pissed
tie,
about
you-
this. I remember
Yeah.
the most
No.
pissed I'd ever seen Pisco was when Zelensky showed up at the Oval Office in his. Pisco was like, "You get him,
his
Mr.
costume.
President. You get him,
You get
Mr.
him."
Vice President. Why aren't they wearing a suit?" Yeah.
Can we talk just
I'm
for a
fully on
moment?
his board. Yeah, go on. Please go. Sorry.
You're with Schwartz. Okay. I think athleisure. What do you guys think? I mean, do you want to see all the fucking Congress people in North Face sweaters and
That's what I want.
and, like,
Yes.
okay, go.
I want to see
I wanna
Fetterman in yoga shorts or yoga pants with juicy on the ass. That's what I want.
That's right.
Throwback.
I want to go after my. This is my oink of the week. All right, I'm stealing this from another podcast, but my oink of the week, my enemy of the week is MAGA Mike Lawler, because I am so sick of these Republicans that live in Democratic run states and who live in competitive districts pretending to do this whole thing of like, oh, we want the salt cap to be higher. We want the salt cap to be higher. These motherfuckers are doing a charade. It's kabuki theater. They obviously are going to fuck over their constituents, and they're okay with all sorts of policies that fuck over the residents. And so I just want to put on blast, if there's any specific person that I hate the most right now in the Congress, it would be MAGA Mike Lawler. He's my enemy of the week.
Do we want to talk about, for our last topic, the Republican budget proposal? That's a big. It's a big.
Let's
piece of
slide
news,
that in there.
you know?
Small.
I want to
potato
talk about
chip.
whether or not Mossad has a stroke gun, but okay.
So the budget proposal, yeah, the reconciliation thing. There was something else related to that too, though. Fucking, we were going to mention earlier.
Medicaid.
Yeah, but that's not it. No, because that's
No.
they are proposing Medicaid cuts.
I love
Denims
talking
v.
about Medicaid.
Ethan drama.
Fuck, there was something else.
Oh,
about the Republican
yeah.
budget. So yeah, go ahead, Boy. It'll come to me.
Oh yeah. I guess so the Republicans they passed the sort of skinny bill that Chuck Schumer supported back in a couple months ago or something like that, and that avoided the government shutdown. But now they're trying to pass sort of their budget blueprint, right? Their much fuller budget for the fiscal year, and they came out with some drafted proposals that are currently still being debated. It's not clear that these are in anything approximating a final form. Josiah, you remembered what you were going to say?
That was it. Non-fam just said the
Non-fun.
not the fucking price
caps.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, the pharmaceutical price caps. Thank you, non-fun.
And
You mean the communist takeover of our country?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just did not want to forget. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and so people are debating this. I mean, the budget blueprint was very clear, right? They said you need $880 billion out of health and human services. Everyone fucking with a brain in their head said that was going to be Medicaid. They said you need $200 billion out of the Department of Agriculture. Everyone said that was going to be food stamps. And it turns out that's exactly what it was. Who would have thought, right?
100%.
And so they have this problem where they want to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017. Recall that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act had essentially sunsetting provisions. For some reason in this government, we decide that things tend to be passed in a 10-year time horizon. And wouldn't you know it, fiscal year 2026 or something like that, ends up being about 10 years after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act gets passed in 2017. So they come out with this proposal. They say, hey, we want to extend a lot of these tax cuts, and we also want to do little changes here and there. But then we have to find a way to pay for them. And one of the ways that they're going to pay for the tax cuts is basically cutting benefits to the poorest people. Now, to the people listening to this, okay, don't get tricked, because some Republicans will say, we're not cutting anything. We're not cutting these benefits. We're just saying that if you're able-bodied, you shouldn't get Medicaid, essentially. Or at the very least, you have to work in order to get Medicaid. Now, the thing about Medicaid is that it is a state-administered program. So there's essentially 50 different experimental Medicaid systems in this country because America cannot do things right. It chooses not to. One of the things it doesn't do right is that they say a lot of our welfare programs are administered by the states, okay? A ton of different states have experimented with putting state-level work requirements on Medicaid. And what are the results, right? The results are not that the able-bodied people on Medicaid start working, right? The only result is that you end up kicking a ton of people off of these programs. Because keep this in mind, guys. If you say, hey, Mr. Medicaid recipient, you have to be, if you are able-bodied, you have to work, right, to get Medicaid. That's a paperwork requirement for everyone on Medicaid. All of a sudden, you have to define what able-bodied means. And obviously, a lot of people are going to slip through the cracks on that. Right. Litigation, like Pisco said as well. And then you have to define what work means, right? Like, what does it mean to work? That's kind of an unclear thing. Like, let's say that you're, a child caregiver at home, or let's say that you have a dependent that's not necessarily a child. What the GOP wants to do is say, well, hey, if you're an adult with no dependents, right? But again, what does dependent mean, right? Like, what if you're taking care of a sick relative at home? What if you're able-bodied in some definitional sense that they describe, but you're not really able-bodied in a meaningful sense, right? A lot of people who are disabled, they can work, but they can't necessarily work full-time or the 20 hours a week that is required in this bill. That's why all of these proposals that have work requirements, it just ends up saving money. Like, keep that in mind as well. When they talk about, like, we're not cutting Medicaid, but we're going to save money by doing work requirements. How do you save money?
Off.
Yeah, how do you save money doing that without kicking people off the program? Anyway,
Econoboy, can I actually ask? Because I maybe you can fact check me on this, but I think this might not be necessarily the method they're going to save the money. I think they had two paths forward. One was to do what you were saying, which is to reduce the expansion of Medicaid under ACA, and that seems to be so unpopular that even Mike Johnson is not planning on doing it, or at least he's saying he's not. Although he might. But the other major one, which is to close the loophole, which is a loophole to be fair, which is the states that are already spending money in other places on hospitals, nurses, all those costs. They say this is part of my Medicaid budget, and because the federal funding is matched dollars 2, 3, sometimes 4 times to these places, if they declare the already spent money as part of the Medicaid budget, they can inflate that by 10, 20, 30% sometimes and use that to spend money. Now, by the way, I think this is good. It gives more money to Medicaid. It lets poor people get more funding. It keeps these hospitals open. But their justification doesn't seem to be, hey, we're reducing the people who are qualified, in so much as, hey, we're closing this loophole, which is a loophole. It's just...
No, they are talking about work requirements. So Econoboy mentioned work requirements. I don't think he touched on the things that you're talking about, but they are, I think even Josh Hawley says he's in favor of work requirements. And it's an example, I think, of one of these proposals that I think yours would also be an example of, or maybe not. You'll have to think about it more, or I'll have to think about it more. But this is an example of the kind of messaging they're doing to pretend as though they're not cutting, and that's kind of, I think, Econoboy's point.
Well, that is a cut. It is a cut, but it's just not the cutting of the people that have qualified under the ACA expansion. They might still do that, by the way, and I'm not in favor of either of these. I just want to be sure that it seems like there is some sort of state exploitation to inflate the budget to get more money for people that I think deserve it, but they're going to not do anything about, hey, we're going to allocate more funds to these people and keep these hospitals open. Just go fuck yourself. We're closing this and we're not giving you this money. Goodbye. That's my understanding.
It's funny you mentioned Hawley, because he was like doing like crisis management on CNN of all places after the Energy and Commerce Committee went live with it. Like, he's acknowledging that the House Republicans in this budget are going to strip Medicaid from constituents. That was
Missouri
a hell
will get fucked over.
Yes, that was a hell of an admission to make. Even Fox actually said, Energy and Commerce released their budget over the weekend. They are cutting Medicaid. Like, it's just
It's
people
undeniable.
are actually acknowledging it. Yeah.
And it's so stupid because, and this is why people who are against this kind of like this Medicare and social insurance programs, you're going to pay for it anyway, right? When all of a sudden we don't have any preventative care for these people, we get them at their most expensive, which is emergency room visits. And what happens when they get emergency room visits that they're never going to pay for? All of our fucking premiums go up. So no matter what, right? You want to put in these work requirements or don't put in the work requirements, we're all going to pay in the end. It's the same thing, by the way, with unemployment insurance, all these other programs, that the cost of administering these, a lot of the means testing, not to say there should never be means testing, but oftentimes what you're doing is you're just internalizing a cost that you're going to bear no matter what. And if you kick these people off the programs, we have to bear it with more homeless people on the streets, more crime, and higher expenses in the emergency room that lead to higher premiums.
So
Right.
I was not expecting to bring this up, but I have one other thing. Or was there more to say about the budget thing? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we also can't discount all of the tax cuts to the very wealthy in this.
Yeah.
In this
No,
budget that
no,
are being
we're
proposed.
paying
Wait a minute.
for. Yeah.
I was told that Trump is leaning into the populist base, and that he was really leaning on Mike Johnson to create a new tax bracket.
and
It's
increasing
really
the
funny.
military
You
budget.
you can tell which god they serve most directly, because Trump did say that he wanted to do a millionaire's tax of if you had over, I think it was $2.5 million of income, we would raise your rate from the 37% to the radical 39.6%. That was Trump's proposal. And Mike Johnson, the House Republicans, said, well, sir, I mean, we are sycophants for you, but we are sycophants for the rich much more than you. And that will not be included in the final budget.
I think it was like, did you ever watch that Family Guy skit where it was like, that's like Ringo writing a song for the Beatles. He comes up and they're like, we're going to put this right over here on the refrigerator. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Which sucks,
So,
'cause Ringo had some great ideas.
Yeah, so some of the stuff in the TCJA that they're talking about is good, I would say. Like, they're talking about keeping the expanded standard deduction, something like that. That is actually a progressive thing to do, and it simplifies tax filing for like 75% of people. So something like that is good to do. But most of the stuff that they're doing is very, very, you could say, distributionally very, very bad. They're keeping the lower tax rates on rich people to 37%. They're expanding a lot of, for instance, they're including a standard deduction for the elderly of about $4,000. And, the problem with that, typically speaking, is that your marginal dollar is not as valuable to go to the elderly as sort of a population at large. Like, why give it to only people above 65 years old? Just give it to everybody. It makes no sense otherwise. It's not an entirely bad bill, but the net cost of all of these different provisions, if you include like the progressive things in it and also the regressive things, it's essentially another 10 years of distributing a few $100 billion a year to the wealthy, which is pretty unfortunate.
So
call your senators. I don't know if you tell your audience that, but we still
call
can. There's still time.
And tell them to not vote for this. The SoyPill wants them to vote for this, but I would encourage you to encourage them to vote against this. So two final topics to wrap up here. Number one is between, the 90-day tariff pause with China and there being some recovery in the stock market. Trump making his announcement that his magical executive order he's like, it's going to cap, maybe 50%, maybe 70, maybe 80, maybe more when you think about it mathematically, drug prices in this country. But when you factor that in, do you think that Trump's approval rating will rebound? Because I know a lot of people thought that it was inevitably on the downward trajectory and there was no reversing that momentum. Do you expect that Trump will see a meaningful lift in his approval rating as a consequence of these things?
Well, it's already
and sorry, one last thing, the inflation. I think there was like an inflation report which said that inflation had lowered surprisingly last month.
Well, I think his numbers have stabilized. Like they leveled off a bit. I think the only age demographic where he continues to grow in unpopularity is Gen Z, and everybody else there's been like some minor improvement. But yeah, he's not like climbing.
I would think
Not
that
yet.
because
It's only been a couple days, right? We'll see.
He might be, yeah.
I would think that because he backed off on a lot of the China tariffs, and I don't know, I would just expect that. I guess Trump has really just shown his hands on these tariffs, and he's just really not going to follow through with these radically high tariffs. And so what that means is that probably what we're going to be looking at is, in my view, a pretty stable approval rating, unless something else happens that radically reduces his approval rating. Like if you start to see any other major news event, like he's arresting mayors of Democratic cities or stuff like this, if he really expands that, if you see the Republican budget go through with tons of Medicaid cuts in it, I think something like that could do it. But it's right now, I think, like Hutch said, I would say it's in a pretty steady state for the next 3 months or so.
Yeah, I think the basic. Oh, go ahead, SoyPill. SoyPill, you first. But first, clarify, SoyPill, behind you, that is not
that's
green
Pickle
dildo,
Rick,
correct?
obviously the coolest Rickle and Morty character of all time. Yeah, it's not a dildo, although anything is if you're brave enough. I just wanted to say that it's kind of interesting because I think more people than you would want to vote based on vibes, and if you pass this thing that just reduces drug prices, even if it is more costly in the end, even if it affects our GDP negatively, even if it like overall is not doing the intended thing, if those costs are not seen by the consumer at the cash register, they're going to be happy. And that's all that matters. If they say, hey, my day-to-day life, it looks like I'm paying less, that's what matters. It like the whole like economic outlook, the consumer outlook on, hey, is the economy doing well, has very little to do with how the CPI is, with how bad inflation is. It's, hey, does it feel like I'm paying less? And if they see it being less, I think his numbers are going to go up. And that's why we need a money president who just says, I declare money and gives people money. Like, I think it really would work.
Yeah, like the Democratic argument on, like, you'll see like wonk people and Democrats will say, well, some Democrats will say like, oh, if we control drug prices like Europeans did, then you would see a lot less innovation in the pharmaceutical sector. But like SoyPill said, the problem with saying that is like, I don't see or feel a lower level of innovation, right? I don't see or feel that. That's an opportunity cost that isn't tangible to the consumer. If I go and pay for my current prescription and it's half the cost that it used to be, that is some shit that I feel, right? That's some shit that I really, really feel and care about. And so, I think, and I think in general, the arguments on price caps are probably a bit overblown in the pharmaceutical industry, but that's something that's definitely a danger. The only, I guess maybe Pisco, you could answer this question a little bit better, is it's not clear to me that he has much legal authority to do anything with regards to pharmaceuticals, not outside of Medicare or the Medicaid program or anything like that.
Yeah, this is going to get struck down. I mean, it's pretty remarkable in terms of the about face. I guess now price controls are okay. Command economy is okay with respect to tariffs. Command and control is okay with respect to everything that Trump is trying to change with respect to the economy. But in terms of the legal authority to do so, it's doubtful he has the legal authority to do his tariffs. It's doubtful that he has legal authority to do those price caps. And so yeah, I don't think that these actions are going to have staying power. I even think the tariff situation, he's starting to retreat on some of them. It's going to be, an interesting question in court, and we'll see how the litigation proceeds. But no, I don't think that he has the power to institute price controls without specific authorizing legislation, which Biden had under the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, he tried to institute the most favored nation policy towards the end of his last term, and it was challenged and frozen and struck down. And then President Biden rescinded the executive order because it was DOA. The courts killed it. And then, you have the Medicare price negotiation thing as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And I just want to say, because I see a lot of people talking about this, so everybody, if you have any questions, like, oh my God, the Medicare price negotiation thing, that only applies to 10 drugs. Please hear me on this, because I still hear Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian and others talk about this. It is not only 10 drugs. It's a tranche of 10 at a time. And after next year, the number in the legislation will increase. Now, it's ultimately up to the Trump administration to enforce. But when Anna Kasparian and others say, oh, it only allowed for the negotiation of 10 drugs, period, it's a fucking lie. You can say it should have been 100 at a time. That's fine. but it's 10 per year, and the number increases with each subsequent year. So after the first two.
There's one thing I want to say too about that, and it is, I think, a key insight. I don't know if it's a key insight, but something that I think I agree with the abundance folks on. We can't just look at this from a demand situation of trying to affect the price of these drugs and think it's going to solve all of our problems. Number one, pharmaceuticals are not a big percentage of healthcare costs in this country. By and large, like what, the 5 to 10% of healthcare costs are pharmaceuticals. It's true. We pay a lot more in certain respects for some drugs than other countries, but it's not a humongous cost of our healthcare expenditures. What we need, we need more supply of this shit. We actually do. And so I don't think that this is going to be a panacea. And I think it's going to be doomed for legal failure. Will it affect his approval ratings? Maybe. But I think a lot of what he's doing now, Trump, is going to set him up for long-term economic issues that will not help his approval rating. And if they fuck with Medicaid, I think that will go down, 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 down.
Now, just to be clear, I do think...
Go ahead,
I
Hutch.
was just going to say... go ahead, Hutch. Sorry.
Well, hang on, you led mostly on this. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're going to stay on topic, so go ahead.
Oh, you don't.
No, I was just going to say, no, I do think at the end of the day, this is great political strategy from Trump. Like, I think that there is something to be said about getting caught trying to the average voter that, like, even if what Pisco said is true, and I don't think Pisco would necessarily disagree with this, like, even if you sign an executive order like this and the courts say, oh, you know, we're going to overturn it because you don't have the legal authority to do so, well, then Trump can just come back and say, guys, look, it's the fucking corrupt court that won't let me do this. Like, it almost like reinforces that talking point.
Biden, yeah, I was gonna say Biden did the same thing with student debt, and the progressives fucking skewered him for that.
But
it's the double standard built in. There's such a fucking double standard. It's inherent.
But we all agree that Democrats have a big problem with messaging, right? Like the right messaging probably wasn't used in response to that. And I think that the right messaging that the Trump administration can use is, because they're already running this line on how the courts are corrupt. And by the way, like Democrats aren't innocent in that regard either. Like, I don't know, most of us think that the courts suck in many different ways too, right? So, you know, being able to say, look, the courts are doing this, that, and this, and they prevented me from giving you half off drugs that these other countries import. I mean, it's great political strategy if they play it right. And I wish the Democrats could, in some regards, take a page out of that book.
It's easy. You go up, you say, they want you to die. They don't want you to get healthy. These courts, they hate
honestly, real talk. I'm not sure why. Maybe Hutch has some study behind this, but I am wondering why Democrats just don't talk increasingly blunt like that. Like, hey, Republicans just want you to die. They hate you. They really do hate you. Like, they would prefer you. No, they want you dead. Otherwise, they would work, because
I think that's
Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders actually called Trump's bluff on this. They're like, hey, you created an executive order. You did it before. It got struck down. It's almost like you're doing this on purpose to get caught trying, because you don't actually want the results. So, hey, we'll make it federal statute. We have legislation right here. Why don't you get your cult to co-sign it? And no dice so far. And that's something Democrats should be raising.
Even that, what you just said, even though that's good political strategy, you realize like we've done that. Like back when Obama tried to like help Mitch McConnell's bill pass, he's like, look, you know what, let's do this. And then Mitch McConnell vetoed his own bill. Like, this just doesn't play with most of these Republicans. I think even that is too complicated. I think it does have to be like a simpler, dumber message, unfortunately.
I think it can play
like what you said when you started. Like, they want you to die.
Well,
like, people.
But it's hard to make that message when Trump's the one writing the executive order, lying to you, saying, I don't want you to die.
I want to go. I agree that we should say that they're going to kill people. But I want to agree with Hutch a little bit here, which is that I think that these are meat and potatoes issues. You notice the prices or you don't. Your debt goes down or it doesn't. The price of the medication goes up or it doesn't. And that, to me, it's like, people notice that shit. And the last election shows that when it comes to those economic issues, issues of debt, issues of prices, issues of economic condition, in terms of your personal financial, where you're at, I think that oftentimes people feel those things and they feel like the actual real tangible effects, with one exception, I think, which is like real wages. They feel like they deserve that stuff and that the real wages, it was them and not the government helping. But in general, I think that these are meat and potatoes issues that people will feel.
Hutch, what do you think about that before you change the topic?
No, I mean, yeah, I agree. I got nothing to add to that.
What's your topic change?
You brought up the approval rating. Someone in chat was, because I had said that his approval rating had stabilized, and someone in chat said it was Cope, that he was climbing, and I just showed you the aggregate.
Yeah, and
so
we put on
he's still historically unpopular for the first 100 days of a term.
I mean, it's clearly difficult for Trump to go below. I mean, it clearly takes a lot for Trump to go below 45%. and it clearly takes a crazy confluence of factors for him to go below 40%. The only time I can recall that he was below 40% for a large period of time was about maybe like a 3-month period within like 3 to 6 months of his first term when he first became president around Charlottesville. I think he dipped to like 36, 37% or something like that.
And then shortly after he left office too, with January 6th.
He didn't have the cult of personality at the time. And yeah, you could say January 6th was like a particularly crazy thing that happened. But, you know, I mean, it takes quite a lot for Trump to become broadly unpopular. You could see. I mean, he does have the cult, you know.
That's why
I also
these things aren't as important. Like, oh yeah, drug prices here, grocery prices here, but like, I don't know. Maybe you disagree with this, but it seems like this is what people vote on. Like, he could have the best and or worst foreign policy thing ever, where if he brokered peace in Ukraine and Israel on the same day, and all of them got together and formed a new coalition of, like, I don't think people would give a shit about that because they don't see it, they don't feel it, they hear it once and then they'll forget about it in a few months. Versus, hey, every day I go and get gas and suddenly it went down. Like, if you implement some sort of like communist like price control policy and like spend and waste a bunch of government money like fixing it at a certain spot, and this fucks over supply and demand, but people see their prices going down, I truly do think that is enough to sway the approval rating. I think that's all that most people care about.
I think the pod bro space is a good barometer for this stuff, because like as he was losing approval rating, you had people like Joe Rogan that were talking shit about him, Tim Dillon, Theo Vaughn, I think was even critical at one point. But like, yeah, that's just like a good way to sort of judge where the culture's at. Like, a lot of people, the extent of their engagement in politics is listening to podcasts. And so if they're hearing negative things on Joe Rogan, then they form negative opinions.
Yeah, but well, to be clear, do you think that, are you all saying that Trump actually either has to actually deliver the results, or the results have to happen on his watch, or he has to get caught trying to deliver the results? Because of three different things, or is it any of them?
Actually seeing the results while he's president, right? Like, if the economy is doing bad because of the tariffs right before the midterms, he's going to get absolutely destroyed. It doesn't matter what the messaging is. I just think it's like...
So do you think the executive order he just signed, which isn't going to work, especially because it's going to get challenged and frozen, you don't
it's not going to do shit to his approval.
You don't think it's going to help?
I think if that doesn't deliver on lowering drug prices, I don't think it'll sway the needle all that much.
Yeah, it's just a helpful way to save face and reframe the issue that frankly is more correct than the way that Trump often tries to reframe the issue, right? Like, oh, great deal, we got a great China trade deal. The deal is we're going to stop all the bullshit that I started. Like, you know, like, that's very dishonest. But if the court literally prevents him from doing like a most favored nations policy with other countries to import drugs, then at least it's like, okay, well, like, the court really is doing that, right? Like, you know, we would have this policy otherwise.
The last thing I was going to mention.
One last thing.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of the courts, I don't know if you're going this way, Josiah, but Chief Justice Roberts saying our rule of law is in danger. Can we all just pour one out for John Roberts? Hey,
no,
Mr. Chief, thank you so much for coming out and saying that powerful thing about the rule of law being in danger. It really means a lot coming from you. And I have no idea how it could have happened that the rule of law is in danger. But really, thank you for being brave and standing up and really, fighting for the rule of law.
You didn't wait.
You had me for a second.
You didn't
wait.
Enough, yeah. The quote. He said the rule of law is in danger. We should have given Trump more immunity is what we should have done.
Oh, yes.
He's like, that's my one regret. No, but the last thing I was going to touch on, because I've just been seeing so much of this in my feed, is obviously you have that book coming out from Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper about President Biden. What the fuck is it called? Original Sin, stuff like that.
It's so dramatic.
So there's a lot of discourse at the moment about how much Democrats need to address Biden's mental fitness now and how relevant it is in the future. What do you all think about that?
Talk about
this is
being
so stupid.
late.
I want to be the first word on this because sorry, SoyPill, you go first.
No. You wanted to be the first word, and I stole it.
I wanted to be the first word because I am so fucking sick of people saying you guys all lied about Biden's cognitive decline. You can see me on podcasts going back years saying, yeah, Biden has lost a step. Biden has lost a step. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a legitimate issue. We had conversation on Live and Learn. I can point to the quotes. And for people to be lying specifically about me, Rob Noor, and saying that I am part of a chorus that lied to anybody about anything, produced a lie. And I'm so also sick and tired of people saying that there was a cover-up generally on his age. There's specific cover-ups on like George Clooney's shit and his insider, I guess if you could call it a cover-up. Typically the executive department like doesn't just like whistleblow on itself all the time. No one would expect of the Trump administration for them to just like whistleblow on their internal deliberations of the president. So I guess if you call that a cover-up, I guess it's a cover-up. I guess the George Clooney thing is a cover-up. But no one was like not noticing Joe Biden's age-related decline. It was one of the most important issues. By like 2020, it was talked about so much in the 2020 campaign. It was talked about increasingly during his term of office.
There was a new op-ed like every week for fucking
every week,
years.
Every week, every
fucking day. Are
It's
you
fucking
serious?
insane. Now, if you want to talk about specific people and specific instances, okay, I'm happy to have that conversation. But you cannot say that it wasn't talked about during the course of Joe Biden's presidency all the fucking time on all these podcasts and shows. The American people, like 80% of Democrats thought he was too old. Where's the fucking cover-up of the general issue?
The cover-up was from his campaign, obviously, and you're right, they would never admit it, but it was frustrating for some people hearing anyone say, oh, he's just has a stutter, when you can just compare the two things.
No, the
problem is
one was when people said he's better than ever. Like that was bullshit, sorry.
It's one of those like, I think most people, I mean, me and lots of people on the left were calling it like the sundown showdown. We got two like dementia-ridden guys about to like fall over on the way to the boxing ring. I don't think this was hidden by most people, but the people that were in charge were trying to hide it and downplay it. And I think if that is a small minority of the people, you're able to hyper focus on that and say, hey, look, like he's lying about his, ability to speak, and like everyone else can see it. And that did feel like gaslighting, even if it wasn't the majority of people.
Well, that is unfortunately a reflection of the bad democratic culture that we've talked about on this podcast several times, where it like, again, it seemed like everyone now, the thing that I've always said is I've never seen great evidence that Joe Biden literally has severe dementia. Like a lot of people were saying. I think it is very clear that he's very old and very slow compared to what he used to be when he was younger. But I've also always said you could say the same thing about Trump. Look at a clip of Trump from the 1980s, compare it to today. It's also night and day.
Double standard, though, unfortunately.
Or from
4 years ago.
From 4 years ago.
Or from 4 years ago. That's true as well. Like, look at the 2016 debate and compare it to how Trump speaks today. But what I was going to say, though, is that when it comes to the Democrats and their culture, is that it seemed like it took essentially the worst, most public failure of a debate performance in like all of history and a complete national conversation and subsequent like several weeks, and as much as just I hated it, like several weeks of wall-to-wall coverage on this issue before Democrats were like, all right, fucking I guess we'll go with someone besides the incumbent fucking Democrat in this race. And that is very frustrating.
I don't like that phrase. I don't like that.
Yeah, neither do I, actually.
We shouldn't have run him in the first place, is what I'm trying to say.
You had major party players that were pushing Biden to leave like that week, Like I don't understand this consensus that you're recalling. I don't think
Dean
happened.
Phillips ran against him. I mean,
that is not true, guys. Okay, there was Lloyd Doggett, who came out, I think it was like a few days or maybe a week after that debate. He made news because he was a single Democratic congressman who was willing to say publicly,
right. That's different than what they're so
that's what matters.
It's actually fucking delegate accountable when you're the guy who has all the cards actually is Joe Biden. If Joe Biden stood firm, he could have tanked the Democrats even further than their loss in 2024. It actually is, and I need to hear you say it's Econoboy. It actually is a delicate situation in what happened post debate.
No, I don't think so.
So what you wanted to do was was all the Democrats at the same time to come out and say, drop out right now.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
Okay. I'm for that.
Okay.
I mean, because if Biden, look, guys, I'm sorry, I don't, and maybe this is what you guys think of Joe Biden. I happen to think Joe Biden is not of such a low moral character. I don't think if you did that to Joe Biden, he would all of a sudden become Trump and just try to torpedo the Democrats as hard as he possibly could.
Are you kidding? He almost did it. Joe Biden has one of the biggest fucking egos. It's one of his biggest problems is, yeah, he's arrogant as fuck. And he was going to ride to the end. And even now he's going on shows saying, I would have won. I would have beat them. I knew Kamala was going to lose. The guy is out of his fucking mind when it comes to this. And so, yeah, I think that they need to push him from behind the scenes.
I think he got Facebooked by a headline in terms of what Biden said on The View, because he wasn't saying like he didn't think that she was capable of winning. He was talking about
no, he said specifically that she was capable. Yeah. To be clear, I do think there was some disingenuous takes of that particular statement by Biden. He was quick to say she's absolutely capable.
He is doubling down that he would have done better.
But yes,
right?
but Pisco's right in that he says he's still like, I could have beaten him, even though there's absolutely no evidence to support it. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was it not the progressive contingent that were pushing for Biden to stay in? Was it not like
AOC and AOC were
the ones that are saying like, I don't know, and then it was like Pelosi and Clyburn that kept the door open?
Hang on, I'm not going to hear this. You know what, AOC, she's my queen. I'm going to defend her right now. She was saying, be careful what you wish for, and warning the American people and leveling with them of all of the dangers and risks attendant to what they were proposing.
No, I'm not. I wasn't disparaging her. I wasn't saying like, oh, she made a mistake or whatever. I understood. I agreed with her reasoning for a while there, because I thought the idea of a contested convention or like a mini primary was like super dangerous. Like there were no good options at the time. So I'm not like disparaging her. I'm just saying like you had Clyburn that refused to say that Biden should stay in the race, which was notable. He didn't come out and say Biden should drop out, but he was given the opportunity to clarify, and he left that door open. And then Pelosi, like, what was it, like a week after the debate, was like
multiple times. It's the president's
decision. He needs to come to that decision. He needs
yeah.
He's like, well, he made that decision. I understand.
This is why Econoboy's framing is so frustrating, because it wasn't the Democrats' choice.
Yeah, fuck you, Econoboy.
Actors in 2024 for him to run again. They didn't want him to run again. Obama didn't want him to run again. If you look at the inside reporting, the Democrats, the insiders didn't want him to run again. He chose to run again. That was his cross to bear, and he will forever face the shame of choosing to run again. And you know what? The shame I feel isn't for, quote, covering up Biden. It's for taking it as a fait accompli that he was going to run again. When really, I think the thing that Cenk Uygur and Dean Phillips got right is they were right initially to speak out, and maybe it should have happened sooner rather than later. But in the moment, once Joe Biden has clinched the nomination, it needs to be incredibly delicate, because you need to maximize the chance of you actually convincing this ego-driven guy to step out.
Well, but by the reporting that I saw, though, at the time, the thing that really convinced him to actually drop out was that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi went to him with a credible threat of going public with calling for him to drop out. I'm just saying that the Democrats, and it seems like we agree that he never should have run for re-election in the first place. So at least it's good that we agree on that. But it seems like we also lost. I mean, what was it between the first debate? The first debate was in June, I think. And then I think he officially dropped out like in like late July, I want to say. I think it was like a couple months or something like that. And so we had 2 months of no coherent strategy, a meltdown of a campaign.
And then Trump survives an assassination attempt and gets all that propaganda.
Yeah. And so I'm just saying
that shows there's no conspiracy, right? That shows there's no conspiracy.
I didn't say there was a conspiracy. I'm making a strategic point. I'm making
still in Tim Pool mode, dude. You're in Tim Pool mode. You got to
yes or no.
I didn't say it was. I think there is I think in Democratic circles there is a genuinely held culture of doing everything you can to avoid, as the hierarchy gets higher and higher, criticizing incumbent Democrats. And I just feel like that's.
So can I push back on this a little bit? You and I are usually on the same side on things, but I think it's more complicated.
I might be out of line.
Because the reason Biden ultimately dropped was because the Democratic Party, unlike the Republican Party, was actually willing at a certain point to say, fuck it. We're going to go public. We're going to take the risk. We're going to go public with our criticisms and concerns and our urging for Biden to drive. That's what they did. Like
and Pisco's point was that you have to be delicate when you're doing that, because every little move you make can have repercussions that reverberate all the way through November. So
100%. Now I want you to think about the counter example here. Is there anything that Donald Trump could have said or done that would have ever prompted
Oh
the
my
GOP.
God, Josiah! Yes, we hate Republicans. They
No,
suck. Trump is awful.
yeah,
Yes.
I think
Well,
Democrats
no.
obviously
What,
they,
Pisco, what the fuck are you talking
No,
about?
Josiah.
The point
What do
is,
you want to say? I fucking hate Trump. Yes, I agree. We all hate Republicans.
Joe,
Democrats are
give
better.
him
Welcome to
decaf.
Live
Whatever
and
the
Learn.
fuck you put in front of him, he is way too caffeinated. My point is, when people are like, the Democrats were unwilling to criticize the incumbent, we did. Now, you can say it was too late, but unlike the only other major party, the Democrats were actually willing to go after Biden publicly.
but-
that
Yeah,
was
that's
what
amazing.
I'm not-
the fucking fascist party's fascist. Crazy.
At the end of the day, the Democrats that criticized Joe Biden, or at least they went to him with that credible threat of going public, deserve some credit. But they also deserve a lack of credit, let's say, for waiting so long to do so. I understand the point that, hey, it's delicate. Maybe Biden's ego is so big and he gets offended and he like tries to, I don't even know what that would look like necessarily, tries to torpedo the Democratic chances. Maybe he like digs in and he like
Well, he would
stubbornly
have just
stays
stayed
in.
in. He would have just
Yeah,
stayed in. There was
I
no
mean-
mechanism to force his removal.
Well, to Pisco's
Yeah, I
credit,
mean,
and I
maybe,
think this
but
is true, like getting him to step down was like taking the keys away from drunk grandpa who's not
Yes.
supposed to be driving. And I think
We
to
get it,
Econoboy's
Pisco.
credit-
Drunk grandpa shouldn't be having fucking keys and driving around their cars. We get it, Pisco. We're against drunk driving.
Yeah, and
God
knowing how hard that was going to be, I think that
Insufferable.
the Dems should have been doing this like a year or two before the election. Like, look, buddy, you're not there, and you're declining, and people are looking for a change. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't really matter that they got him to step down because Kamala Harris was then stuck between a rock and a hard place of, hey, I can't go against anything my former boss was saying, and B, if go ahead, I
I
have
was
2
just
months to
gonna say,
prepare.
Look at how, as well, again, in the culture of the Democratic Party, look at how a guy like Dean Phillips was treated when he said, this is a problem. I'm running against Joe Biden, essentially almost entirely because I just think someone else needs to run against Joe Biden because it's got to be, it ain't him. It might not be me, but it definitely ain't him. He was
Well, that was
treated
self-serving.
terribly.
I mean, like he didn't honestly think that was going to work.
Yeah, whatever. Obviously, we can criticize his actual true beliefs, but how he was mechanically treated was you had Democratic insiders calling anchors of MSNBC and CNN saying, "Don't interview this guy. Don't let him on your show." He had Democratic Party chairs be told the same thing, and obviously, look at how Bernie was ostracized until he started a whole entire national movement. Like the Democrats in general. Even with Biden was an extreme case of a candidate that very much needed a credible primary challenge, if only for the reason that he wasn't the most popular incumbent, but also for the actual seemingly more serious reason, which is he's probably just way too old. And Democrats were like, no. And to SoyPill's point, you had, and I understand they're in a campaign. They're always going to, the dear leader, we can never criticize him because I literally am running a campaign for the guy. But it doesn't help that you've got campaign manager, communications directors, all these people that are like, no, don't believe your lying eyes. Joe Biden's doing great. He hasn't missed a single step. It's like, guys, like this is it's a bad look, It's just a bad look.
How much of it now after the fact, given that Biden's not in power, he's trying to do this redemption tour, which that's just like pissing in the wind. I think he's making his case so much worse.
I'm riding with Biden 28.
If Biden is ever redeemed in terms of his reputation, it's going to be long after he's gone, right? When people start to consider his legislative accomplishments, whatever. But to what extent do you think Democrats, because there's just a lot of discussion on the CNN, News Nation, MSNBC, Fox, everywhere, about elected Democrats wrestling with this publicly now? Do you think that there has to be some sort of mea culpa where they're like, hey, for 2 weeks, all we talk about is how Biden...
Exactly. Donald Trump's strategy, ignore it and actually admit no wrongdoing. Say, we were 100% correct to do it. God damn it. And we will never admit wrongdoing because that's what you have to do. It works. We just have to be playing their game.
And it's also ridiculous. The
Triple
standard,
down.
by the way. What did you want the Joe Biden administration to do? So I agree. The Joe Biden administration downplayed all this shit, and so did his campaign. What do you want him to say? Actually, yeah, Joe Biden has cognitive decline, and actually, it's questionable whether or not he can run for 4 years. But it's better to elect a corpse than Donald Trump. Is that really what you wanted to have been said by the campaign or by the administration? Is that something you expected them to say? Is that a standard that any administration would be held to?
I said you don't expect them to say that.
World?
You don't expect them to say that. I said that earlier. What you expect is 2 years before the primary happens that these conversations are already happening because you have some sense of planning for the future, right? I mean, again, we talk about the reporting where it's like, I don't know, it kind of caught us off guard that Biden was running for re-election. Why? How the fuck was that not something that was being discussed from like after the first 3 months that he was in office? Obviously,
It was
that
discussed before Econoboy. I remember people were talking about, oh, he's going to be a one-term president, right? I think he even mentioned he might be doing
There was
that.
one moment that one comment that he made in passing, and then shortly after he was inaugurated, I distinctly remember somebody asked him, like, "Do you plan on running again?" He said, "Look, we'll make the announcements at the appropriate time, but I intend to run again."
Yeah, he said something like, "My expectation is that I would run for re-election," and you know, my big point is just that Democrats, I think, should have had the foresight to say, "Hey, you know, it's not as if he ran a great campaign when he won this first time around. Fuck, he barely fucking won in 2020 after like a week of counting votes, and of course the Democrats stole that election. That wasn't even a real win, guys. But you know, the point is, like, he barely won that
privately, Econoboy. They did privately, and Democrats overwhelmingly the Democratic like voters, they didn't want him to run a second time. It's been reported now. Obama, the insiders, Pelosi, the Congress people, they didn't want him to run a second time.
They should have gone public, and they should have been, you know, more willing to say, "Hey, big donor this. Hey, you know, major candidate Y. We need to organize a credible primary, not Dean fucking Phillips or Cenk Uygur or RFK Jr. Like, we need like a, you know, a credible challenger."
Listen, Econoboy, we get it. Your instinct is for civil war in all things.
Yeah, you want
That's right.
You want to kill people.
Got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet, guys. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Your answer to everything is primary them. Just for like every questionable candidate.
I've never seen a problem I didn't want a primary.
Do you think that Biden's his reemergence is doing political harm to the project of damaging Trump reputationally?
Is anybody even really paying attention to it? Like,
Dude, Fox it's like nonstop at Fox. They are
really,
like, oh my god, like Biden's back up on banners. The most recent
I'm just not
seeing it was like
talk
every
about it on my
segment was
feed.
about Biden. This subset about Biden. This particular thing he said on The View. This excerpt from Jake Tapper's book. Yeah.
It might engender the base, but I have the instinct that Hutch has, which is I just don't think this is really penetrating most people's ecosystems. But
no, that's fair. Well, listen, folks, we went a little over time. This was a lot of fun. This was the 5 of us plus caffeine Pisco, which is separate from regular Pisco.
It's true. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing going on.
No, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Pisco's Dr. Jekyll is Mr. Hyde. This is like a more Hyde-ish.
See, I've only ever seen this is the thing. So I didn't know there was a calm version of Pisco. We've only engaged in the debate sphere. Even on the same team, he's like my little dog on a leash. I'm like, whoa, Pisco. Whoa, rein it back, boy.
Dude, he is the new wrecking ball, I think, for the left. That's why I'm trying to hype him up in that direction where it's like, you need to be
Ben Shapiro of the left
in the debate space everywhere. He just needs to be everywhere. Tim Pool, I think he needs to go on Dave Rubin. Try to get him on Piers Morgan.
Dave Rubin has me blocked, bro.
Dave Rubin had me blocked.
Same.
I said that.
God, am I blocked by Dave Rubin? What the fuck?
Wait, really?
I said
I don't know. I might be.
And he blocked me. So
because he was soying out about the whole thing of put a target on Trump or something. Or what was it? The jokes about
bullseye.
I think it was Trump is in our bullseye.
Something like that. But then he was joking about the Paul Pelosi thing, and then I kept bringing that to his attention, like you do, and like I do to Dave Portnoy sometimes, and he blocked me. But you know, so I don't think that bridge is burnt.
Have you had any interaction? Somebody noted with Ben Shapiro, given that he's a conservative lawyer. Have you had any sort of interaction with him?
I tweeted at him before, but I've never talked to him about something. You know,
That's
I
the
don't
next
know
thing.
him.
More of a
I
one-way
want to
interaction.
try to get a conversation with Cenk Uygur, but he doesn't like me.
Is he a barred attorney, or is he just a lawyer? Ben Shapiro.
Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to Harvard, I think.
No, but is he barred, or did he just go to law school?
Has he ever been in practice?
Yeah,
I don't think he has. I don't think he has.
I think he passed the bar.
So
Cenk's
not a
also
real
an attorney, or
lawyer.
was educated as one. Cenk was too. So yeah, that'd be
That's
good.
true.
Wait, his
His wife is a
School.
doctor, which is like kind of like a lawyer.
Cenk or Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro's wife is a doctor, which is kind of like a
My
lawyer.
wife's a doctor, gang. Okay, gang.
Let's say hypothetically that Pisco and I had a debate. Okay, let's say hypothetically this happened.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask because, like, if I had the opportunity to talk to Ben Shapiro, I would be pushing him on all the things where, you know, he has signaled his disagreement, including the tariffs, including the $400 million Qatari plane, and I would try to get some concessions on those fronts. And I think it's really, really super simple when you just put the like blatant corruption in front of their face and lean on them just a little bit. You saw that with Will Chamberlain, right? You saw that with Tim Pool, frankly, and you saw it with Alex Stein. They're willing to, on the record, say that they disagree with Trump on that stuff, and I think that each one of those concessions is helpful for me, and I like it.
Well, I think it's also helpful to point out, like, or to at least ask the question, like, is that a deal breaker for you? Because like it's one thing to say, you know, oh you're right, you're right, Pisco, you're right, whatever, the meme coin is bad. It's like, but is it bad and also a big deal, right? Because that's where it seems like
didn't.
You know,
remember when he told
Destiny went on him and Ben Shapiro was like, "Oh, I grade him on a curve, even when exposed with all the corruption." He's like, "Yes, all this is bad. Yes, I do think this is exactly as you said it was, terrible, lying, corruption. I just don't think it's as big of a deal as what the Democrats are doing."
That's what I'm saying. Like
he has
I
the
think,
out every time.
I think that's the significant thing. Like, even in the Will Chamberlain conversation, Pisco, I recall Will Chamberlain. He had said something eventually along the lines of, you know, I agree. It's unjust what happened.
Not profoundly unjust.
Right. It's just not like a big deal, essentially. Right. It's like, okay, that's probably
and for a lawyer to be unconcerned with procedure because it was the outcome he wanted. I mean, like, isn't that what you guys do?
Snafu, whatever, you know?
Yeah, no, like, isn't the whole fucking point the procedure? Is that not like
you would think? I would very much welcome those conversations. Let's see. I'm going to keep reaching out. I think oftentimes when I reach out, I'm surprised people are accepting it. People want to have these conversations, even like, you know, bigger conservative people. I'm going to have a conversation with Viva Fry. That'll be fun. The only one who really is against it is Andrew Wilson, who's being a little bit of a bitch and saying I have to pay him thousands of dollars. But, you know,
well, Econoboy went on Tim Pool, and that was a wild fucking conversation. And I like Connor, but I felt that Econoboy needed an actual like conservative economist to go up against, somebody who actually held like deep-seated convictions and expertise in this area. And what was funny was I checked, and like Econoboy was trying to get these people to show up, and they weren't. They're like, nah.
Definitely not. This guy knows too much, right? Who was that, Econoboy? Someone just like straight up said, nah.
Prax Ben on Twitter. He's like a anarcho-capitalist YouTuber who, and by the way, what's weird about this guy is he's done debates before. He is an anarcho-capitalist, so which is to say a lot of his videos are about economics and about how the welfare state is bad. So he's talked about how the welfare state is bad. He's debated people about his economic beliefs. But what he, you know, credit to him for being honest. I just feel like it's honestly a shame. He goes, I'm not going to debate a guy who knows about economics on welfare on Tim Pool's show. And it's like, but Prax, like that's so bizarre to me. Because when I was trying to organize this, I had to get my own opponent. Like Tim Pool was like, you have to find somebody to bring with you to debate. And so I reached out to like Alex Naurasta, who is the head of economic policy studies at the Cato Institute. Very smart guy, but obviously libertarian. So, you know, takes a bit of a left turn or right turn, you could say. I reached out to Brian Kaplan, who's a professor of economics. I was a little bit worried about that because Alex Naurasta was like, he's writing a book on poverty and welfare. And I'm like, fuck, let's go jump in the fucking deep end, I guess. He couldn't make it on such short notice. But then you got like Prax Ben, who's like, I'm just not willing to have this conversation. People added Rob Noor and Andrew Wilson. They didn't get back. You know, economics discussion, I guess. It was, you know, credit to Counterpoints, he was just the only one who was willing to do it on such short notice. And, you know, I think he did fine in that conversation.
Tim Pool blacklisted from all the Russian money stuff? I noticed. I keep telling you guys, you got to call him out on the show. No one's doing it. I really want someone to do it.
He's ready for it, and it's just I don't think it's worth it because then we're gonna get bogged down in like
not topical.
And it'll burn the bridge. I guarantee you it'll burn. If he still brings it up, that's the last time he shows up on Tim Pool.
Absolutely. Well, this man is a scum fucking liar. He deserves that bridge to be
no. Well, no.
Because I have a question for SoyPill, Josiah, and I think it's for you too. So last night when I was talking to Alex Stein, he said we should go on we should go on college campuses and organize a tour of debates between you and me on college campuses. And I thought about that, and like Tim Pool also signaled that he might want to have me back on again. I think that they are platforming me, to be fair, because I think that they are bigger than me. But and I would never take money from either of them. What do you guys think about the ethics of that? Of collaborating to do a series of debates or tours, or continuing to do appearances on Tim Pool, Do you think it's being too buddy? You think it's too friendly?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay,
You call them out for their bullshit. I think they're spreading, like, I think Tim Pool is one of the more malicious, lying scumfuck people in this space. And if you're gonna go on, I think you can go on once, but absolutely, like, make sure you make that appearance at least in some degree about how much of a terrible person he is. And like, if you're gonna like use this person to platform yourself, and then 5 years, 10 years from now, you have the political acumen to be like, well, now that I'm big enough, I can call him out. Well, everyone's going to look at your history of 5 to 10 years of like, hey, here you are shaking hands with this fucking piece of shit. Okay, so
I do call him out, like in the actual debate about stuff, about the Russia stuff. I just don't feel that it's relevant to what we're talking about in that moment, and I feel like it's just going to distract from the point I want to make.
Well, for example, Wick went on and they talked about Ukraine.
Not accuse him.
And no one called out the absurdity of a man who was funded millions of dollars to a tune of millions of dollars that he is hosting a debate about Russia's ability to invade the sovereign nation. I think that should have been a huge topic of that, because like it's absurd that was even being held there. Now, whatever you guys were talking about, maybe not as big of a deal, but this man shouldn't be taken seriously by anyone ever. It's crazy to as an audience.
If I say you took money from Russia, he's gonna be like, the Department of Justice did never accuse me. They said I was a victim. There's no evidence that I knew it was Russia.
If you do it out of nowhere and it's not topical, I agree. There's a very easy way for you to just seem unhinged.
Even there, right? I just have to be like, it looks weird. All I have is it looks weird, because I don't actually have the smoking gun that he knew it was from Russia. I have it.
It doesn't matter if he knew it was from Russia. It matters that he is spreading points that are so akin to Russian propaganda, regardless of whether or not he knew, that they felt it was justified to send him millions of dollars. So when he goes up and he screams, Ukraine is the enemy of the people, and then in this next debate that he's hosting is like, actually, I don't care that much about Ukraine. Well, you have to call him out on his inconsistent bullshit and how he's clearly a mouthpiece.
Piso, don't respond, because I'm curious. Does anyone else here agree with Soy Boy? Because I don't. I'm just curious if anyone else. Soy Boy. No. SoyPill. Fuck! SoyPill. God damn it. Sorry. SoyPill. Does anybody here agree with him on that? Because I don't. Do you?
I kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of in between Pisco and SoyPill. Well, I would say that the issue is that, like, for instance, if I'm getting invited on to talk about economic policy, right? It's just like not a topic I agreed to discuss, I guess. So it does seem weird to bring it up. And then Tim is never going to actually host. Now, to SoyPill's point, Tim's never going to host a debate on the Russian money that he did or did not take knowingly.
But he hosted a Ukraine debate.
So
which is very topical.
Yeah, so I think that where the middle ground is that if you're take like Sam Cedar, for instance, he got invited on Tim Pool. Not recently, but within the last 6 months or something like that.
Last 2 or 3 months, actually.
Yeah, and he spent most of that time calling out, if not for the Russian money, at least, hey, Tim, you are inconsistent on these things. You don't know what you're talking about. You're an absolute farce of a human being who shouldn't have a platform this big. And if it's not topical, sure, but every single thing he brings up, he's going to have some dumb bullshit point about it, and you can point it out. And Akanaba, I'm not trying to like slander you for not being meaner to him. I think you were very nice, but you were there to debate Connor. But the guy's a fucking idiot. He has a huge platform. He's spreading misinformation. He's hurting things that I care about. And I think if you are going to collaborate to some degree with an Alex Stein or a Tim Pool or any of these people, your time should not be spent, I'm just going to reserve what I really think about this person and how harmful they are because I want their clout. Because you have people like Josiah and Hutch who are also big. They're not as big, but don't rely on these fucking fucking freaks.
Well, I will say ridiculous. I will say that I'm on Alex Stein specifically. That guy seems awful.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think Akanaba. Well, Hutch, what do you think?
I think that Pisco is really effective in a debate setting. And so my calculus when I think about that sort of thing is like, I actually do see potential for Pisco to change a few hearts and minds. And so I understand the instinct to go scorched earth, especially on Tim Pool, because he's just one of the worst actors in the space and has done just immeasurable harm, I think, to like millions of young men's minds. But I think if you can use that platform to pull people back from that, if I'm going to have someone go into that space, like one of my like top 10 is going to be Pisco, because I think he's really good.
100%. And this is Blaze Pisco, and we should probably have like a segment where we talk about how shitty of a person he is, because he's truly a piece of shit.
And accountable for that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out.
Hutch, let me clear this up, though. I'm not saying that Pisco needs to go on Tim Pool and within like ding, ding, bell rings, and he's just screaming at Tim Pool the entire time. If he wants to go on there and debate another conservative or Tim Pool himself about a topic, I think he is a very effective voice. I think to the degree that he is still popular, people will hear that and say, wait, Pisco's making some good points. Maybe I'm being shifted over. What I'm saying is you can't present this as I'm buddy-buddy with this person. Oh, at the end of the day, we're all just working towards a goal. We just want more free speech. These people are terrible, harmful human beings that I think are like the scum of the fucking earth. And And if you're
Are
going
you
to use
getting
their
that sense
platform,
from Pisco? Are you getting that sense from Pisco?
no. Well, what he
I
just
did
proposed
fist bump-
was,
I fist
what
bumped
if
Tim
we?
Pool.
Yeah, and it's like Pisco
On
suggested,
the
what if I
penis?
did this like the Pisco Alex Stein college tour? It's like, okay, if I'm on a I do not want my fucking face on a promotional poster with this person being presented as like, oh, we're gonna have some fun conversations. It's, hey, I'm on this show. I'm going to counter your ideas, and I don't think you're a good person. And I'm not going to spend the whole time talking about that necessarily, but do not give the illusion that these people are just another member of the debate space. These are harmful people that are doing demonstrable misinformation, and you need to push back on that at every given opportunity. That doesn't mean scorched earth. It just means you cannot let them get away with that shit.
So SoyPill, just a couple of things. So I think that the Sam Cedar example that Econoboy provided was instructive, because I think
Yes,
that
that was
works.
perfect.
I think
Sam
that
was
works.
perfect.
I think that works for Sam Cedar, because that's probably going to be the last conversation they have. I'm sure Sam Cedar would love to do it again.
I disagree, Josiah. That he blacklisted Sam Cedar for years, and then after that, he allowed him back on, and then they had that conversation.
But Sam Cedar, by bringing up the Russian money situation, that was a much more brutal line of inquiry than the last time they spoke, which was about Thanos and bullshit. So I think, if anything, Tim Pool's probably more inclined now, by way of personal offense and fear, to never talk to Sam again. I that could change, I suppose. But if I were a betting person, I think it would be less likely that he and Sam Cedar talk again than in the future. But what I'm saying is that works, because I think Sam went into it. This is my one and only chance to engage with Tim Pool in the same room. And he did exactly what you're talking about. And I think that worked for that reason. If it's Sam's personality, if it's the dynamics of their relationship, but I don't think that should be, that's something that every person has to do. And I think it is important that Tim Pool be comfortable enough with some level, be it Luke Beasley, me, Econoboy, Pisco, Hutch, if he ever goes on, you, as you continue to grow, that there be some people that Tim Pool does not fear will go after him in that way, so that they are on his platform regularly, so that Tim Pool's audience is exposed to this.
Luke Beasley, great example of him calling Tim Pool out to his face. I think, Josiah, were you there with him, or you were
on one of them?
Yep.
And I think you did something similar. And it's like, look, again, this isn't a, hey, you go on and you're attacking him 24/7. But if you're not on there calling out his bullshit to his face, because you can see in real time when he lies, when he makes stuff up, when he presents things wrong, when he asks questions that he knows the answers to make you look stupid. If you're not pushing back on that constantly, I think you are aiding in his misinformation. You're legitimizing his information. In the same way, in 2015 and 2016, you had Jimmy Kimmel or all these people bring Trump on and say, oh yeah, okay, he says all this stuff about wanting to ban Muslims, build a wall, all this, but right now we're just having a fun little conversation. You really need to attack that stuff.
Would you agree that the social media space was a space that the Republicans just fucking dominated?
Yeah,
for like the last 2 years. Okay, so like, I understand the sentiment of what you're saying. I think I would make the argument that I don't think we can afford to risk being permanently ousted from those spaces. And you brought up Luke Beasley, but Luke Beasley is enormous, and so like he has enough clout that I feel like he can get away with like being as confrontational as he wants, and Tim's always going to invite him back on because he has just an enormous amount of subscribers.
I'll leave it with this. I'm going to respect you less if you don't call it this bullshit. I'm not saying there's a right way to do it. I think Sam Cedar did a great way, and I think if you want to keep going on and you're not pushing back on this as much as I think you should, I'm just going to be like, all right, because I don't look. I of all the people here probably need the clout the most, and I'm absolutely not going to hold back if I get presented with some of this bullshit.
Well, but I don't know if anyone's saying like don't push back. I don't think anyone's saying that.
I think we're
like,
okay. Well, then we agree.
Yeah. I think we're just talking past each other, because I think all that SoyPill is saying is that you shouldn't. Okay, for instance, like when Biden was dealing with the transition of the Trump administration, we all got on this show and said, man, it feels kind of bullshit that Biden is kind of just chill with this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like it feels a little bullshitty that he's not a little like seeming a little bit more worried and a little bit more confrontational when he's speaking to Trump, because of everything that we talked about on the show. I think that's basically what SoyPill is saying, is that, if you're going to go on these shows, there's a type of like Anna Kasparian style appearance that you could have where it's like, oh my goodness, like, Tim, don't we just agree that poor people suck? Like, it's just, oh my God. And yeah, homeless people are burning Seattle down. And I agree that that's a terrible thing. Like, there's a kind of appearance like that you could have as a member of the left, which wouldn't be good. But I think
And to be
generally
clear,
speaking,
he's
we do a
still
good
on Tim
job
Pool, Econoboy, did a really good job of this, I would say. He was pushing back on these points. He's calling out Tim's lies to his
That's
face.
what I'm saying. I don't think we disagree.
if you're going to
I
go
think
on,
we're just talking past each other a little bit. Yeah.
I think maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit. I'm not saying you just need to be like burning bridges 24/7. I'm just saying if you are giving the illusion that you are friends with these people or that like to some degree they're legitimate, that's ridiculous. I don't like that.
You mean specifically with like, hey, I'm doing a college tour with Alex Stein. Like you're talking about
like that speaks of like, oh, it's the Pisco Alex Stein team up. And it's like, whoa, motherfucker, like you're not teaming up with this guy. You're going to make sure he doesn't spread his propaganda.
I wish people in this space, and I understand, there's, you don't have to be as confrontational as Pisco can be, for example, but I wish there was like this sense that you could just be honest about, hey, I don't like this person, but we're going to have a civil dialogue. Like, I'm imagining a hypothetical tour with Pisco and Alex Stein or Pisco and Tim Pool, and they could even just address the elephant in the room. Like, hey, listen, Tim Pool seems like a personable enough kind of guy, but I loathe his politics. I don't view his opinions as valid. I think that the views he espouses are a threat to democracy or a threat to the political construct. And that's precisely why I'm here, because I want to try to refute them.
Can I make one last appeal? Yeah. One last appeal.
Can I ask you, would you answer that question? What do you think about even framing it like that? Like, hey, listen, I'm literally not going to scream at you and call you a piece of shit and try to kill you. I'm just going to acknowledge.
I'm not saying you should do that.
Yeah. Right. But what about framing it like we're going to have a civil conversation? Maybe it becomes an aggressive debate at some point. But we're just
civil conversation part, I think, is already, making an equivalence between two positions that I don't think are civil. That's the first problem. But my greater appeal is this. I think if you look at what people care about, what even people on the right are caring about, especially the people that watch these podcasts that I think the right wing dominates right now, these Theo Von, the manosphere, which I don't even know if I agree with as a term because it encompasses all these different ranges of politics. The thing that they like and the thing that they really appreciate for any of these politicians is authenticity. And it's authentic when they come in and they can talk about what their positions are for 3 hours and just like explain things slowly. And like calling out Tim Pool does not mean you have to get angry and scream at him. It could be a very calm, like, Tim, what you're doing right now is this is bullshit, and this is why I don't agree with it, right? But the authenticity matters a lot to people. And if people know what your politics are and people know how you feel about these positions and you're going on these shows and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like some suggestion here was, do not say what you really think because you need the clout and you can't push back because you will get blacklisted. That I think is unacceptable. And I think it's going to be viewed as inauthentic. So as long as you maintain an aura of authenticity, whether that be yelling or screaming or just calmly dissecting someone's terrible point, that's more important. That's what people care about. That's what gets people to watch. That's my last.
I want to give, so there's one thing I want to agree with SoyPill with is there is a problem, I think, of left-wingers getting charmed. And there's a danger of it. So one thing I've said publicly is, the Tim Pool organizers, Tim Pool himself and Alex Stein behind the scenes were incredibly nice people. And I can see why people who like have those cordial relationships, they can start to get charmed into thinking that they're their friends. And so I do see a danger that I saw Bill Maher kind of get charmed by Donald Trump a little bit. And so I do think that there's a need for us to always take a step back. And though I don't know that I agree that I'm holding back at all. And what I say with
I don't think you're holding back, to be clear. Yeah.
And I don't think that you're saying that. I do appreciate that there is a kind of, you have to take a step back and realize these people aren't your friends. And on that, I think I totally agree with SoyPill.
Just don't let yourself become a useful idiot. That's all I'm saying. Don't let that happen because I've sine it happen and it pisses me the hell off. All right. Like there's so many people that do that.
I would just say personally, for me personally, I've just, maybe I should give this advice in private, but I've seen too many crazy things from Alex Stein. For me, I don't think I'd ever want to, like, if it was anyone else besides Alex Stein, like if it was like the Rob Pisco tour across college campuses or something, or Tim Pool or anybody like that. But like SoyPill said, like this is a guy who like sexually harassed AOC on video. Like I just wouldn't want to be associated with him personally.
Should I do a Rob Noah college tour?
Yeah, but it'd be a 7 hour, it'd be a fucking 7 hour seminar. Each stop would, like
booking the room from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Would be a bit logistically difficult, but
and that's cutting out closing statements. Like they'd get no closing statements in that sort of time frame. Yeah. That actually might be wildly entertaining. You should think about that, especially. I think I saw somewhere that he joined a right-wing network or something like that.
The Andrew Wilson Confluence, Conduit, Crucible, the Crucible network.
Yeah.
It's a network. I thought that was just like he had like a YouTube channel where that was him. Okay.
Yeah, he has a Daily Wire wanted to oppress women even more. That's the
SoyPill,
concept.
you were such a good guest. We went about
Such
an
a great
hour
guest.
over what we normally
God,
do.
yeah.
Wow,
Thank
yeah.
you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Like, I'm a fan of
Free-flowing
all of you
combo.
guys. I really like respect that you let me have this space. I will say, type 1 to end the deep state. That's always my final message. And also, Hutch, no hard feelings, but Trump is funny, and I think he would call you hairless Hutch. He has no hair, and he's a big baby about it. He doesn't think I'm very funny, so we don't love Hutch, but we love Hutch, don't we, folks? So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you,
man,
guys.
thanks for stopping by. Yeah, appreciate it. All right, folks, we're done. We're out. Please like and subscribe to everybody, and subscribe to everybody's Substack and everybody's YouTube and Twitch channel.